His phone number.
Ross, there's a seat up here in the front. And there's a seat over here. Larry, you got a seat there.
Seems like a long time ago, something about their football practice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I couldn't see
ago.
that. We're good.
I was actually able to easily get up and out off the ground.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will call the meeting to order. This is Thursday, October 6th meeting of the Asheboro City Council. And I apologize for those of you that are having to stand in the hallway. Don't think we were expecting quite this large crowd tonight. I would make mention of the fact that some of you may notice Michael Leonard, our city engineer, is not here tonight. His mother is having some health issues and he is at home with her. I would like for you to remember Michael Leonard in your prayers and pray for his mom's well-being, please. And ask you at this time to stand and join me in a moment of silent meditation, and we'll follow that with a pledge of allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will dispense with some old business early in the agenda here, and item 3, Mr. Nuttall, I believe you have a written request to withdraw this variance application.
Yes, Mayor, if you would reopen the public hearing. And
I will reopen the public hearing.
Late yesterday, the city received a written request from Max Summey, the current engineer of record for the Windcrest Acres Phase 4 section, and representing the developer Davidson Land Development, withdrawing the variance request that was seeking to remove curb and gutter as a requirement for the development. So I will hand that withdrawal to the clerk, but their request is to withdraw.
Any questions of Mr. Nuttall? I'll entertain a motion to approve that request.
Mayor, I move we approve that request.
I have a motion by Mr. Burks to approve the request for withdrawal. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. I'd like to call on Mr. Brett Sturm, Restoration Specialist with State Historic Preservation Office.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could, I'd like to introduce Brett by starting and reminding the council that earlier this year, historic downtown Asheboro was officially listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The district includes a total of 78 contributing structures that contain a combination of business, professional, institutional, retail, warehouse, residential uses dating back to 1903. As most of you know, the National Register recognizes districts, buildings, structures, objects, and sites for their significance in American history, archaeology, architecture, or other considerations, and identifies those assets as worthy of preservation. The National Register is a program of the U.S. Department of the Interior. Here in North Carolina, it's administered in North Carolina by the State Historic Preservation Office, otherwise known as SHPO. This evening, we're very fortunate to have a staffer from SHPO to provide general information on what it means to be on the National Register. I'm excited to welcome Mr. Brett Sturm. He's a restoration specialist with the SHPO office. He joined that division in 2017, and his area covers a 19-county area in central Piedmont. As a restoration specialist, Brett provides technical assistance to local governments, private building owners, and nonprofit organizations on old building issues of all kinds. He also consults on and reviews building rehab projects that are seeking state and federal tax credits. And furthermore, provides educational programming on traditional construction methods and material science. Very appreciative of Brett taking the time to be here tonight to give what I know will be an informative presentation to council.
Welcome, Mr. Stone.
Thank you. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, council. It is a pleasure to be here tonight. Asheboro is a place dear to me within my service district, and this is a fun meeting to have because it essentially comes sharing good news. It's quite an achievement that Asheboro has made. Landing itself, it's downtown on the National Register of Historic Places. It was listed with the National Park Service in Washington in April of this year. Now, there were several existing properties in Asheboro on the National Register already. What this district has achieved is, we can see on the, is there a laser pointer on this thing? Okay. What we can see on the map here is that the new district, which encompasses the core of historic downtown, links and actually incorporates as existing several mill properties that were already listed on the National Register. I've been with the SHPO for 5 years. I cover 19 counties, and this is the first time in my tenure that I've seen a core downtown be listed on the National Register. So it's not a totally usual thing, and it's a thing to celebrate. Asheboro has a very fascinating downtown, civic architecture, mill architecture, industrial architecture. North Street here is particularly fascinating as you see the expansion of the McCrary Mill over the years. So being on the National Register is a feather in one's cap. It's an honorific designation. It also, I encourage people to think of it as a key opening a gate to several incentive programs that help promote adaptive reuse of historic buildings. Primarily the historic preservation tax credits, 2 different types of credit programs in North Carolina, one for income producing properties, commercial properties, one for non-income producing properties, residential. Tonight, I'm going to be talking in brief about the commercial program. Got some handouts that I gave Trevor to hand out so people can take that information to go. Now, the credit program is a joint state and federal tax incentive program administered in the state by my office, the SHPO, at the federal level by the National Park Service, which identifies rehabilitation as the primary focus of this program. It's different from reconstruction, it's different from restoration. Rehabilitation is the idea that you can take an existing historic building, make it compatible for new use, bring it up to code, make it safe, while preserving those portions of the building that convey its historic value and its cultural, architectural value. So when you're thinking about the tax credit programs, just a few terms to remember. The program hinges upon a project's QREs, Qualified Rehabilitation Expenditures. That's the IRS term, but that's essentially the money that you invest in the project. The credit itself is calculated based on that number, and successful projects will reap a 20% federal income tax credit, and here in Randolph County, a 20% state income tax credit after they're certified through the 3-part application process, which works through us at the state level, the HPO, and the Park Service at the federal level. We use a series of architectural standards to certify projects. I call these the 10 Commandments of Preservation. A brief word on them in a moment. They're called the Standards for Rehabilitation. Examples of QREs, of Qualified Rehab Costs. Generally, a rule of thumb, I tell people, if you can imagine picking up a building and shaking it, the stuff that falls out at the end of a project, not going to be eligible for the credit. That's stuff like furniture, appliances, kitchen equipment, things like that. Stuff built into the building on the exterior, your roof, masonry, windows, doors, et cetera, et cetera. These are all applicable costs. On the interior, finished materials, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, et cetera. These all go into your pot of QREs, okay, against which then an applicant will calculate the credit. A word again about the standards. These are a list of architectural best practices that date to the early 1980s that originate with the National Park Service. And in very brief, I do a whole spiel on the standards, but very brief, I'll compare them to the Hippocratic Oath in medicine. First, do no harm. You do no harm to your patient. So the standards are interested in durability of building materials. They're interested in, again, a building conveying its architectural, historical significance through materials. Here in Asheboro, in your new district, let's get back to the new district you've got. What buildings would be eligible? Well, contributing buildings, buildings which were deemed during the survey process to represent the historic and architectural value of Asheboro, those are contributing resources. And within your new district, you got 78 total contributing structures. You might wonder, well, what is and isn't historic? Yesterday was historic, right? Well, I call it being historic with a capital H. The National Park Service needs some method for determining which parts of a building, let's say a building has a rear addition built later, is that historic? Is that part of the credit? Well, their method for doing that is built into your district's nomination. Your district was assigned a period of historic significance that spans 1903 to 1972. So if a building has a rear addition that's built in the 80s, it technically is non-historic. It could be removed for parking, for example. Minimum spending amount. You might think, well, these are projects that only happen, with giant buildings in Durham or Winston-Salem. These projects happen all shapes and sizes. The minimum spending amount, it gets technical with the IRS, but it's equal to a project has to pass what's called the substantial rehabilitation test. And in general, that means that during a 24-month period, the QREs, those rehab costs that I spoke about, have to exceed the adjusted basis value of the structure. And that's something that an applicant will calculate and declare. What that really means, in essence, is that successful projects double the tax value of a structure. Because the adjusted basis value of the structure basically zeroes in on the taxable value of the bricks and mortar. And an applicant has to spend equal to that amount to qualify for the credit. So it represents, each rehab represents essentially a doubling of a building's taxable value. Now here in Asheboro, y'all know historic tax credits. There are several great examples of projects that have already been done in Asheboro that I show slides of in other parts of the state to sort of brag on. So, for example, old Asheboro Hosiery Mills, Cranford Furniture Company, 1917 building, beautiful brickwork. This was certified in November 2013 after its $9 million conversion to residential. Next door, very popular restaurant, The Table. This was the old office for the furniture mill. This is, by the way, the favorite restaurant of all my colleagues in the HBO. Anytime someone's coming through Asheboro, they want to go to The Table. And it was certified October 13 after nearly $300,000 of QREs to make that conversion happen. Back into the 90s, the Central School, mid-1920s Rosenwald School, very interesting property. 96, that was converted into housing, $1.5 million of QREs. So Asheboro has good examples of this program at work. Elsewhere in the state, there's quite a bit of investment in this particular niche, over $3 billion of direct investment into adaptive reuse through this program since 1976. I believe actually now 91 of 100 North Carolina counties have a project. And typically, as a state, we're in the top 10. We vie with Virginia, Pennsylvania. I think most recently we dropped to 6th, but we stay quite busy. New York State has a lot of projects, Illinois, et cetera. Map showing projects across the state, and just my contact information, I've left my cards. Is it possible to entertain questions?
Sure. Council has any? Council, do you have any questions?
John, do you want to highlight the staff that were involved with this process?
Well, sure, thank you. That'd be our community development, Trevor Nuttall, and primarily our go-to guy for all downtown matters, Justin Luck, who's a senior planner with us. really done extraordinary work. We used Heather Fernbach, and we had lots of contributing structures. And as Brett said, it's pretty unusual to have a downtown district. See a lot of them neighborhoods or housing. Anybody in eastern North Carolina, but it's really exciting, and it should help further redevelop our downtown area.
Yeah, it's neat to see a downtown district come online. A lot of them came online in the 70s and 80s. For one to come on here in 2022 is really neat. And I'd like to tip my hat to Justin Luck. I remember doing a site visit down here some 3 or 4 years ago and talking about this concept of linking these, essentially bringing the downtown, filling that district in between the mill properties. And that was a kernel of an idea in his head, and it came to fruition. So it's really neat to see that happen. Congratulations to everybody in Asheboro, and let us know how we can help with your old buildings.
Thank you. Wonderful program.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to let Brett grab his materials. He's got to drive back to Raleigh ahead of him, so let him.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to know I'm stored.
You have the public hearing on 5.
You'll open it, Mayor, and call on Kevin.
Kevin, okay. I'll open the public hearing for item 5, potential building reuse grant application. Sorry, Kevin. Didn't see you sitting there.
Evening, Mayor, members of council, thanks for the opportunity of being here again this month. I was here last month with another one of these applications. This is a little bit different, but we'll go forward with providing an overview of this project. And I also want to acknowledge Todd Trotter, who's here with us this evening, is one of the owners of the building and the business that's under consideration. So owned by Todd and Lori Trotter, Upstyled Goods and Salon is located just down the road here at 122 South Church Street here in Asheboro, and they sell retextiled branded goods produced at Trotter Sewing Company, as well as upcycled goods from other producers. Retextiled is an environmentally conscious brand that takes scrap fabric that would normally go to the landfill, uses it to make unique handcrafted products. The building will also continue to house a salon, although that will be separated from the retail space that we're discussing this evening. Upstyled Goods and Salon is a startup business. It's the retail side of this business already has an online presence, so you can check them out online. But the 1940s era building is going to require some upfits and renovations before the storefront can open to the public. Required work includes refinishing of floors, ceiling repair, updates to HVAC, electrical systems, and all the things that you might anticipate in a building of this age. For purposes of the grant application, the company is committed to an investment of at least $55,000, although total renovation costs will likely be up to three times that amount, so a pretty significant investment for a small business. The renovation project will create and retain at least 5 new full-time jobs over the 2-year grant period. Upstyled Goods and Salon is eligible to apply for a building reuse grant from NC Commerce in the amount of $25,000 to assist with renovation expenses. The grant applicant, as you're familiar, must be a unit of local government, and I'm here this evening to request that the City of Asheboro serve as the applicant. There's no local government match requirement for this project. The application deadline is October the 27th. Should it be successful, grant awards are announced on December the 8th for this round. So as I've mentioned, this is the same grant program for which the city recently applied on behalf of PEMCO and have done so in the past on a number of occasions. There are some differences worth noting for this particular project. The building reuse grant is primarily focused on industrial projects with companies that are committed to at least 10 new jobs with wages that meet or exceed the county average wage and that also offer a health care benefit. However, on occasion, not often, but on occasion, NC Commerce awards grants for smaller commercial retail type projects, such as the one we're discussing this evening. And based on my understanding, grant awards for these commercial projects are capped at $25,000. They require the creation of at least 5 new jobs, so $5,000 per job. And they also waive that wage and benefit requirement for this. Otherwise, procedurally, they function just the same as the regular building reuse grants with which you're familiar. The unit government has to be the applicant. The grant effectively is a deferred forgivable loan until the project's complete, at which time the loan is forgiven. The city's liable in the event of a default. And again, in this case, the company's willing to assume that risk via some form of appropriate financial instrument or the deferral of payments until the grant is closed. We believe that this is a great project worthy of recognition, and I think it's good to follow on the heels. I know that this is not an historic preservation project, but it is certainly in your downtown district here in Asheboro, increasing the value of the building, resulting in the creation of 5 new jobs here in downtown Asheboro. So I'm here to request this evening that City Council approve the submission of a grant application. Again, these are competitive, and we'll submit an application and hope for the best. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council? Questions?
Delighted to entertain the opportunity.
Thank you.
Todd, come on up. I didn't mention it, but there's a sign-up sheet on the desk here at the podium. If you'll print your name, anybody that speaks tonight needs to print their name. And the purpose of that is so we can transcribe the audio tape properly. We can't always get the correct spelling from your comments. So,
Thank y'all. Hi, I'm Todd Trotter. First of all, on behalf of my wife and Lori, who couldn't be here tonight, which you get me in a letter, so. Our family, I'd like to thank the council and Kevin Franklin for the Randolph County Economic Development Corporation to help in consideration for this grant. I've lived in Asheboro all my life, and Lori and I have raised 3 daughters here. We've owned and operated Trotter Sewing in Asheboro for 30 years this October. We're excited to start a new venture in downtown Asheboro to contribute to revitalization of the downtown area, as well as create more jobs for the future. Our family's hope is to build a salon business that had already existed downtown Asheboro for 40-plus years and create a retail space for goods made right here in Asheboro. We would appreciate your support of this project, and on behalf of my family, our employees at Trotter Sewing Company, and the ladies at the former Elite Salon, we thank you for your consideration of this building reuse grant. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Trotter. Any questions of Mr. Trotter? I will make an editorial comment here. I appreciate you and your wife accommodating the beauty shop, the salon. Those ladies were all kind of, had just recently found out they'd probably have to find another place, and you guys accommodated them in your plan. So I wish you luck on that. I think that's great, and keep that Elite Salon downtown as it is, and add your business to it. Council, what are your wishes?
Mayor, I move we adopt a resolution by reference authorizing the building reuse grant application.
I have a motion by Mr. Bell to approve this request. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
And thank you for your investment downtown.
We look forward to it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the appointed time for the public hearing. A public comment period, I'm sorry. And I would just ask that we be respectful of the time involved. If you've got something that you can't say in 5 minutes or less, we have never had a time limit. We've never set a time limit like the county. We generally will accept anybody that needs to speak and generally sit here and hear what you've got to say. I think we have quite a few people tonight that want to speak, and we're not to the point of instituting time limits, but I will ask that you respect the time that we're here tonight. And if you've got something to address the council on that cannot be said in roughly 5 minutes, then I would ask that you ask to be put on the agenda for a future meeting. And by being on the agenda, you can have just about all the time you need. But tonight, and I'm sure we're gonna hear some repetitive comments tonight, but who wants to go first? Mr. McCloskey, come on up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to stand before you and share some thoughts. My name is Joel McCloskey. I am a natural-born Tar Heel that moved to Asheboro, Randolph County in 2004. In that time, I've been a teacher. I became a husband, a father, a business owner, a citizen, an involved community citizen, and a business that has become a corporate citizen since 2015. Recently, Asheboro City Council unanimously and courageously passed a resolution seeking the relocation of the Confederate statue from its current placement on Randolph County property in downtown Asheboro. Four Saints Brewing Company has been privileged to be part of the Asheboro and Randolph communities, and as part of this community, we firmly support the recently adopted resolution without equivocation or hesitation. In doing so, we join with you, the Asheboro City Council, and city leadership shoulder to shoulder in sending the message that hate has no home here and that all are welcome. There is no political motivation behind this support. It is not politics that is the focus of this support, but rather the safety, the people, and the improvement of our community. As a company, we understand that our support of this resolution may result in losing customers and support for our business. We may face backlash and anger, and if so, it won't be the first time that we have encountered such reactions. We will stand with courage, grace, and purpose because doing the right thing matters most. Asheboro and Randolph County have a bright future, and relocating the Confederate statue, which represents separation instead of togetherness, is only one step forward to that bright future and is crucial to our community's prosperity. We believe that there will be more public support for the City Council's resolution from other local businesses, organizations, and individuals, and we surely hope that there is. We believe this because people genuinely know that the right thing to do is for the greater good and for a better future. And they know that the worst thing that they can do is to do nothing. Ultimately, it will be up to our elected Randolph County officials to make the courageous decisions necessary to ensure the future and legacy of our community as the heart of North Carolina. And we believe that they will because they can. And they will because of the courageous steps that you took first. Thank you for doing the right thing for our Asheboro community.
Next. Come on up, Dwayne.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Council. Dwayne Roberts, Commander, Camp Number 1966, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Sons of Confederate Veterans, Camp Number 1966 is a member of the Asheboro Randolph Chamber of Commerce. I'm really disappointed in the decision that was made towards our memorial. You have not only called the Randolph County Council commissioners racist and white supremacists, you called the whole government as such. By that, you've called the Sons of Confederate Veterans racist and white supremacists. You've called the United Daughters of the Confederacy of Randolph County racist and white supremacists. And evidently, you think we're all a hate group too. And by that, you've called the Confederate veterans at the Asheboro City Cemetery racist and white supremacists. You've called my ancestors white supremacists and racist. You've called my mother a white supremacist and a racist. I get about 99% of my Confederate heritage from my mother's side of the family. I don't apologize for calling my mother, Mother. Thank you for the time this evening. Looks like we need a good draining of the swamp of the Asheboro City Council and government.
Next.
I just have a brief point of clarification. I had come here tonight, Charles Lewis, thinking there was going to be a discussion on the Crestview Church Road project.
We're not there yet. Well.
Is that on the
That's
agenda?
not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda?
It's a zoning case on the agenda. We're not there yet.
Okay,
If you want to, you will be allowed to speak then.
okay, great.
Sure. Anyone else that wants to address the council tonight? Yes, sir. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Barry Stutz. Let me write that down real quick. I'm here tonight, first and foremost of the Dixieland Acres neighborhood about the speed humps and the stop signs that were put in. The stop signs that were put in, most of the people recently, they've just been running them, and I was almost T-boned today. And it's like they just have a total disregard of the of my neighborhood, and they just like speed through it. And I know I've been coming here since around October 2018 to try to, you know, like see if we could like maybe like wrap this up a little bit. And it just seems like it's not going to happen. And you know, I'm just kind of getting frustrated. And I know y'all tell me that y'all are like working on it and everything, but it just seems like, you know, it's going on like 4 years. And I know y'all are waiting on paint before and stuff like that. And
We did the traffic study, and it came back with 2 or 3 recommendations. The simplest and easiest, most efficient first step was the 4-way stops.
Correct.
I caught myself totally missing one a couple months ago, but I've gotten used to them. Obviously, that's not going to be enough, and there are a couple of other recommendations in that traffic study which we were hoping to avoid. Nobody likes speed bumps.
Right.
Every time we put down a speed bump, and I'm not sure they're even allowed on state roads, are they?
Humps are, bumps aren't.
Humps are allowed, bumps are not.
Correct.
Now,
That being
a
by
hump
definition, the difference of 18 inches versus 10
A
feet.
hump has a table. It goes up, it's flat, and goes down. A speed bump is just a little bit of concrete or asphalt that jars your teeth. We seriously were hoping that a 4-way stop, those 4-way stops would help. And what the manager just said to me is, and this doesn't help you or anybody that gets T-boned, but if you see that, and he's saying call 911. We will try to get our police to do a little more enforcement out there until people really get used to that and understand the purpose. And this was a whole process of traffic calming, C-A-L-M-I-N-G, calming. 4-way stops aren't working apparently. So that's what you're telling us tonight. 4-way stops are not working.
Yes, sir. Today I did what you said. I was on Sequoia getting ready to make a right onto Brookdale, and this guy just came through, and I had my front quarter panel of my truck out there, and he just blasted through. I laid down on the horn. He just kept going, you know, looked at me like I was crazy. And so I did. I called 911. I had a camera in my truck. I recorded the thing, and 911, I guess that's the county. Yeah, and so.
Central dispatch for all the law
Yeah.
enforcement.
Yes, sir. And so I happened to be going the same way he was. So I wasn't following him, but I was just given the route that he was taking. And then they finally switched me over, the county did, to the highway patrol. And the highway patrol said they're not going to do anything about it. So I said very politely, I said, thanks for nothing. And just went on about my business. And it's just so frustrating that my neighbor almost got hit mowing his yard. And, you know, people honk at me when I'm turning into my driveway because I got to slow down to turn in or I'll go through my house. You know, it's like, and
the roads aren't narrow, but.
It's just crazy.
It's not.
Another item that can be helpful, 'cause in a congested neighborhood with narrow streets such as that, advance warning of the stop sign. You know, if you were out in state road out in the country, you'd have stop ahead and, you know, perhaps some other signage that would be inappropriate there, but,
Well, we have that.
often use thermoplastic stop bars, in addition to the bar at the intersection, but, at 10-foot intervals, you know, to warn you that you're coming up to a stop sign to get your attention. You know, some signage, because,
When we've worked out there, though, it's not, I mean, don't think it's all through traffic. A lot of them are your people that live on the other end of your street.
Right, right, right.
We did put the red flags up, but I don't think anybody understands.
A lot of people get mad, I think, and they just like speed through it, or when they have to stop, then they just floor it coming out of it. It's like, you know, but,
They obviously.
I don't have any DOT standards to stop that.
I know.
That's people.
But the speed humps really would slow them down, though.
Oh, it would.
And,
We can keep ratcheting this up
yeah.
till it can be impossible to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what you want, we would.
I mean, I know when y'all first did up a plan, there were supposed to be 4 speed humps on Brookdale. And I was just, and that's the only reason I'm here, just to see where we are, like on that. That's the only reason.
Yeah, we've done enforcement. Go out there and do more
Okay,
enforcement.
sure. All right,
And
and,
then we'll let the PD say if we need them.
okay,
We'll install them. Like I said, though, it's not, it's a huge, you look on a map, on an aerial photo, it's a huge neighborhood there, lots and lots of houses. A lot of people say, well, it's just people driving through from, a lot of that's been cut out by the super southern loop, so.
okay. And I just have,
Maybe,
I'm sorry.
And you had another issue, another item.
Yes, I didn't know y'all were going to be talking about the statue tonight.
We weren't.
Oh, okay. And,
That's just public comment.
okay.
If you'd like to make a comment regarding the statute, feel free.
Yes, and also, did you say, since if I would go over the 5 minutes, could I get put on the agenda for next time?
If you call and ask to be on the agenda, we can certainly
Yes.
accommodate that.
Sure. And who would I call to make sure?
City manager's office.
Okay, sure. And, but I just want to say one thing before I take off. That with that statue, to me, the statue is not racist. It's just honoring the war dead. And as in every case, the victor writes the history. And it was no different when the North, you know, beat the South. And I just find it hard to believe that that statue represents hate. Maybe in some people, they can link it to the hate. But for me, that just represents the war dead and the Southern history. Because in today's world, we celebrate, you know, different cultures, religions, and different people. But it seems like lately that the Southern way of life, the Southern heritage, is looked at with a wary eye. And that's just wrong because, I mean, I'm a Southerner. And the facts are, and this is why I want to be put on the agenda because I have a whole lot of facts and footnotes, is that only roughly 6% of the Southern, of the white Southern population owned slaves. So I don't think the other 94% went to war so the rich could hold their slaves. It's because their homes were here. And that's all I'll say tonight. But it doesn't represent slavery as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Y'all, thanks a lot for letting me speak.
We're working on your problem.
Okay, thank you.
We sincerely hope that the four-way stops would make a difference, and we're desperately trying not to put down the speed hump.
Okay,
Because where everybody that stands up and says we need them, we'll get 20 people that say, what are you thinking? You know, nobody wants to navigate a speed hump.
okay,
So, in all honesty, we were trying not to do that,
okay,
Stop bars will help.
but we may get to it.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next.
Hi, I'm Eli Harmon. I'm an Asheboro resident. I was very disappointed to hear about this council's resolution at last month's meeting. I gather from seeing interviews like the Mayor Pro Tem's on Fox 8 that the hope seems to be, just to put this all behind us, to move on, to join hands, etc. But this strikes me as a profoundly vain hope. There's no city in this nation that is so quote-unquote progressive or forward-thinking to not have a loud and perpetually discontented racial grievance lobby. You know, where were the worst riots and the most looting in 2020? They were in the biggest, bluest cities that were the most accommodating to this politics of racial grievance. I moved to Asheboro in 2020 precisely to avoid such nonsense. And the last thing I would wish to see is Asheboro go down the same road. Asheboro is different and ought to remain different. Asheboro ought to continue to frustrate and deny those with a chip on their shoulder and an axe to grind. There are plenty of places they can go and hate our ancestors and hate us and get a pat on the back for it. This ain't one of them. Democrat Paradise is only 20 minutes down the road. They can come back on the weekends and visit their kin. There are plenty of people of all races in Asheboro willing to join hands and cooperate for the future. But this had best remain barren ground for those who wish to hold the past against us forever, without end and without limit, continually demanding appeasement and concessions. Some of those calling for the statue's removal have pointed out how divided Randolph County was way back when on the issue of secession. You know, well, so it was, and the whole state too. North Carolina was the last Confederate state to secede, and only finally did so when ordered to raise an army and wage war against its neighbors. The statue serves not only as a memorial to those who did fight to protect their homes and families from this overwrought federal tyranny that ultimately laid waste to their state and continues to bedevil us to this day, but it serves as a continual poke in the eye to all those who come down on the wrong side of these issues and others. And for that reason, it should stay, because those people are not a good fit for this community and will not enrich or improve this community. You made a grave error in trying to please those people because you can't make them happy. Example after example demonstrates this. But you can displease your constituents, the ordinary voters and citizens of Asheboro. And that's mainly all you've done with your recent declaration, or I guess whatever it's called. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Next.
Good afternoon. I'm them. How you guys doing? I'm standing up here mainly because of the video, because the video is history, and I want to be able to document some things very clearly. I don't know who all's here, but if you can, do me a favor. If you're here and you support relocating, not destroying, but relocating the monument, would you mind standing up, please? Now, there are some people who want you to think that there are one or two people in Randolph County who want that monument moved. Every one of these people showed up today to say that's not the case. Thank you. Thank you all very much. And I want to thank you for the conversation. Your actions created an environment where the conversation can happen. And let me say, without talking to anyone in general, those individuals who fought for the Confederacy, I don't believe they were racist. I don't think they were racist. I don't think history shows us that they were racist. Some of them were executed for refusing to join the Confederacy, which is why we have said from day one that to destroy the monument would be just as much of a bad thing. That's not the word I want, but that's the word I'll use. Just as much as a bad thing, because we can't deny our history. But when we act like things didn't happen, that's the eraser of history. When we act like the Confederates did not put in their in their Constitution, that they wanted to outlaw, the Confederates put in their Constitution that it was illegal to outlaw slavery. So anyone who would stand up here and tell you that it wasn't racial, how do you synchronize those two things? When the people who wrote the Constitution, it wasn't Northerners who wrote the Confederate Constitution. It was Confederate legislators who said that it would be impossible for any Confederate state to outlaw slavery. That's not Northerners, that's them. The state of South Carolina. Now, when we write our Declaration of Independence, when we told England, we're leaving you, we put down why we were leaving. We wrote it out. And we said, as a matter of fact, my daughter's here, she told me something I didn't know. They wrote it and then brought it back and thought about it and rewrote it some more. It was a legislative body that wrote our Declaration of Independence telling England why we were leaving, the United States was leaving. The Confederate States did the same thing. And in those articles, they're called the Articles of Secession. You can read them for yourself. In those articles, they put in writing why they were leaving. The state of South Carolina said that the United States has elected to the highest office of the land a man who is hostile to slavery. They went even further. Not one individual, but their legislature said they went even further and have done something that was against God. Some of those northern states are allowing black people to vote, and it's against God. The state of Georgia was even clearer. And this is what's so beautiful.
Is this? I'm gonna need you to wrap this up. I'm sorry. You're giving us a history lesson.
Well, I wasn't going to speak, sir, but the young man that was here before, I want people to understand that we don't hate them. But when the man said that it wasn't racial, it was most definitely racial. And I know you all, I sent you the information, but there's a video that's playing, and there are people in our community who don't know that the vice president of the Confederacy, in a campaign speech, talked about how the Confederate States would be the first in the history of mankind built on the understanding that the white man was superior to the Negro. That's what they said in a campaign speech. And so we do not want to destroy the monument. We want to put it somewhere where people can honor their ancestors, where people can talk about it and put it in context. But it should not be in a place where when I want to go do business with my government, I have to go by that monument. Thank you.
Thank you, Chip. Next, anybody else? Mr. Lyons?
How you doing, Mayor Smith? Good to see everybody. I'll make mine real quick. I called you all individually to say thank you. I just wanted to publicly say thank you for the resolution you passed. To Chip's point, when we all stood up, I've been a leader before, and I know that when sometimes you make these hard decisions, you lay awake at night wondering, you know, was it the right thing to do or not? And what do people believe? I care about all my citizens on both sides, and I want to do what's best for all of Asheboro. Just wanted to give you a couple data points. Joel was brave enough to put a video up with that statement that he made for Four Saints. There's 1,900 views. There was 258 likes and 1 dislike. 258 likes and 1 dislike. 45 positive comments, and I read through all of them. I guess I need some other things to do with my life. But I read through all 45 comments. There was only 2 negative in the 45 comments. So I just want you guys to know exactly what Chip just demonstrated there, and that there's a large contingency of Asheboro citizens supporting what you guys did. I also thought a little bit about the type, and the type of citizen that clicked like, and the type of citizen that made that positive comment. And I saw a lot of names that I recognized, you know, a lot of people that are on boards, a lot of people that are volunteering in classrooms. I'm dressed like this because I had to leave the football field from when I was coaching this evening. Those were the people that I saw, those were the names that I saw liking the idea that you guys, liking the resolution that you guys passed. I think it's the people that are willing to get in the trenches, give the blood, give the sweat, give the tears to make Asheboro a better place. That's who's supporting this resolution. And I just want to say thank you for giving us that energy and giving us that motivation that we needed from our leaders. Thank you so much for that.
Mr. Lyons, y'all play at home Saturday or what?
Yes, we play at home. We had a couple teams scared of us, so they wouldn't play us. But Blue Comet Youth football, and Raiders football, y'all, I'm telling you right now, thank you so much for that and supporting that huge movement. We had 700 people come out and eat hot dogs the other night. Mayor Smith ate the first 3 hot dogs, and then he served about 700 after that. But we had our police department serving the hot dogs. That's the community that you guys are building when you pass a resolution like that. That's the community you're feeding and giving fire to and giving energy to, and just thank you for that. And the Raiders, watch out for the Raiders, and the Blue Comets are going to be in the championship. All right.
What he's talking about, people, is AAU football for 8 and under, 10 under, 12 under, 6 under. The 6 and under is a hoot. And their uniform helmets are bigger than they are. But, and they play at Asheboro High School Saturday, 10, 11:30, 10 till about 2 in the afternoon, something like that.
10 to about 3, yeah. So come support us.
So, yeah, it's a good thing. All right, is Tammy, come on.
I'm going to make it quick. I did not intend to, hold on a second.
I'm sorry, Ms. Coley, come on.
It wasn't my intent to speak to you all tonight, but I changed my mind. I am from Asheboro, grew up here, Asheboro High School, go Blue Comets. So proud of my hometown. So I moved away. I lived in Raleigh for a while. I lived in Atlanta for a while. I lived in Charlotte for a while. I think that's it. And now I'm back, and we've been back for a year. And so as a child, as a younger person growing up here, I did not understand the statue, the monument. It was the statue, whatever. Coming back here as an adult and seeing that statue there, where it sits, right there by the courthouse, it was offensive to me. Totally offensive to me. So I just want to say to you all, thank you so much for what you did. I feel even better now knowing that there's a body, the city council, who supports removing that monument. It just makes me feel good to be back in Asheboro. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, last chance. Anybody? Mr. Durham, come on up.
Good evening, folks. This is not related necessarily to what we've heard tonight, but it does go back to last month's meeting. When I attended the city council meeting, I was moved by the generous donation. I think it was $50,000 worth of equipment by the Asheboro Kiwanis Club to install playground equipment at the McCrary Ballpark. Am I correct? And then a little later in the meeting, we heard that the Eastside Park didn't have decent equipment. And it hurt my heart. I don't know if it bothered any of you folks or not, but I thought, really, that's kind of strange. I didn't know there was no good equipment there, but it just seemed like there was an inequity there.
Have you been over there?
No, not lately.
We did a study because one of the TV news people picked up on those comments. We did a study, and we spend the same money at Brewer Street Park that we do the rest of our parks. almost to the dollar.
Okay,
They have playground equipment. They have something the other parks don't have. They have a basketball court. They have a picnic shelter and bathrooms and an activity field, just like all of our neighborhood parks do.
great.
You know, just,
So it's all fair and square. It's all equal.
we could always do more.
Okay. That really wasn't the reason I wanted to stand before you, though. Stay tuned.
Firing, you'll get us.
I don't look at it that
We're
way.
sitting, darn it.
I don't look at it that way. I look at it as a concerned citizen. But I would like to refer back to page 14 of your city council minutes from August 4th. I'm sure you don't have those right in front of you, so I'll kind of remind you. Item 9E related to the authorized traffic study of the Salisbury Street and Sunset Avenue merging area, which is quite dangerous. Almost got hit there today. I believe that Councilperson Kelly Heath asked Mr. Nuttall how long that traffic study would take, and my notes state that he replied about 2 months. So, since I didn't see this topic on the agenda tonight, and unless I'm mistaken, I am thinking my appearance before the group that night of July 26th when we had the Lexington Road controversy. This might have led to the city manager's request, and so I would appreciate an update since it has been 2 months.
Contract with DRMP's let,
When was that, sir?
that was done 2 months ago.
And what is the usual turnaround time by then?
We're putting the screws to them every day to get the study done.
Would citizen pressure do anything, or is it going to have to come from the council?
They're a private engineering firm, right?
Right.
Yes.
And we're at their mercy. And
So what's
every
the general
engineer in the
timetable?
country's behind right now.
Because of all the traffic problems we heard tonight?
No, because of the COVID.
They do
They can't
way
keep
more than
anybody
just
at work
traffic.
either.
They do all over the state.
Okay.
It
So when should I reappear before you to ask for an update?
it probably would help if you,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
it probably would help. If you, you got my email, send me an email, and I'll ring DRMP tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chip.
And that's the
They're on
easiest thing
Salisbury
to do.
Street, and you can feel free to drop in their office.
I think you send me an email, I think I'll ride over there tomorrow.
Okay, one more time, last chance. Maria, come on up. How is, school math and science treating you?
I wanted to talk to you guys about that, actually.
You didn't change your mind.
Oh, absolutely not. I love it. So, when you're at the School of Math and Science, you're surrounded by a whole lot of people who are always talking about their hometowns, right? And you have to do these things called icebreakers. So when you're sitting around the circle, everyone kind of knows where it's from, but I'm always like, hi, my name's Maria, and I'm from Asheboro, and there's always this silence that's like, Asheboro, the Asheville, Greensboro, I'm like, the zoo. They're like, oh, love the zoo, don't know about the rest of it. But I always have to defend it, you know? I'm like, no, you haven't been there in a while. You don't know how great Asheboro is. And they're always asking me for evidence because kids at science and math are evidence people, very logical based. They're nerds. That's how they work. So you have no idea how happy I was. And I've been saying, I posted it everywhere. I talk about everywhere that now when I introduce myself, like, I'm Maria from Asheboro, I get to pull up this great video that's like, yes, and I have a city council who is trying to remove our Confederate statue. They're working with us. They're showing us the potential that government has. People at science and math do not like trust government because it's like this new Gen Z thing where we don't like the government. But now I get to be like, look at my government. Look what they're doing. You see this? I tell everyone, everywhere. I posted the video. I'm so happy. I was jumping up and down, so thank you all so much. Thank every single one of you. This was fantastic. This is truly a work and a stepping stone for all, not just Asheboro people, but for all younger kids to look around and be like, wow, the systems that were put in place back then, though they need some fixing, sometimes, they still work. And that's great to think about. We had a meeting, a public meeting, on a certain day where someone was talking to us about a system where, could you imagine it? It's a system where people complain about things, and then other people fix them. And what would we do with that? That's insane. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't even work. What is this? And now, look at it. A system where we complain about things, unjust things, and other people fix them that actually work. Do you know how a relief that is? Because you can't stay stuck in a cycle where you think nothing's going to happen, where you think your voice is unheard. You told everyone that their voice matters, no matter what side they were on, no matter what's going on. By your decision, you told so many people, so many young people especially, that what they say makes a difference, that we can actually make change. Because, you can always be like, oh, yeah, I'm from Asheboro, and, I talk to the city council, I talk to county commissioners, and we talk, and we talk, and we talk, and yeah, we talk. But I can be like, we talk, and I have a video of what happened afterwards. And it's an amazing feeling. So thank you all so much. I just wanted to say that. Okay.
Thank you, Maria. Good luck to you in school. All right, one last time. Anybody else? All right, we'll close the public comment period and move on. Item 7 on your consent agenda, and I'll wait just a minute for anybody that needs to leave to go. All right, item H. Item H is approval of an ordinance establishing 4-hour parking zone on Sunset Avenue between Railroad right-of-way and Church Street. We're gonna remove that for a little further work. We're not quite, up to speed on that, where we wanna be with it. So, the consent agenda is in front of you, and unless there's another item to remove for individual discussion, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented minus H.
Mayor, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as presented, minus letter H in the consent agenda.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Burks. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion to approve the consent agenda is passed. Okay, item 8. And that, I will open a legislative hearing on case number RZ 22-10. Mr. Nuttall's gonna give us a background on an application to amend R10 zoning on property at 1223 Crestview Church Road. Go ahead, Mr. Nuttall.
Mr. Mayor, before I start this, just in reference to the traffic study that was mentioned during the public comment period, my understanding from the city engineer and the engineering office is that we have had difficulty getting a proposal from an engineering firm related to the traffic study. So if there was a reference to a couple of months for it to take, that was based after the study would have initiated and been underway. But to my knowledge,
so we can't get anybody to bid on doing the work.
That has been my understanding of what we're at.
ARMP cannot get anyone to bid on doing the work. But that is what.
Based on conversations that I believe engineering has had.
Mr. Durham, you pick up on that.
I'm understanding there is no contract, is that right?
Well, in terms of the time frame, what I wanted to address was if there was a reference to 2 months, and I did not see that in the council's minutes. But
we have an agreement with DRMP. Apparently, they farm it out to a traffic engineering company, and stop me if I'm.
All I'm saying is it has been slow to get a proposal related to the desired traffic study. So we may be in a position, I have not talked to the engineering department about this lately, but it may be a situation where we are pursuing other firms to conduct.
Call John tomorrow, email John tomorrow, he'll ride out there and talk to the RMP and see.
And so we can explain, I've signed the Minnie Brooks Act, which I can do, authorizing $50,000. So they have the ability to do it. So you send me the email and I'll go over there tomorrow myself.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay,
This is rezoning case 22-10. This is a conditional zoning application for property at 1223 Crestview Church Road. It's located on the west side of Zoo Parkway, encompasses 1 Randolph County PIN. This is a proposal for a new residential planned unit development It includes a subdivision sketch design as a part of the application here this evening. The applicant on this matters, Mr. Darren Lucas, he is in attendance this evening. This is an application that has been signed by the property owner as well. So Mr. Lucas is not the current owner to my knowledge, but the owner of record has signed on to this application. We're looking at just under 10 acres in size, and currently the property is undeveloped. I have distributed through the help of Mr. McCaskill the site plan. Hopefully it's made its way down. That's associated with this request. I'll go through some background information, and then I'll put that site plan up on the screen for hopefully for everyone to see. The subject parcel on the map is outlined in blue. You can see the different colors on this map. Those denote different zoning designations within the city of Asheboro. The yellow, the majority of the yellow you see is a R15 zoning designation. The subject parcel several years ago was placed into a conditional zoning R10 district for a similar type of project. At that time, there was 36 units that were proposed. The lighter color to the south and west is R40, a low-density residential designation. If you go beyond that area and see white without any letters or numbers, that is county zoning jurisdiction. To the bottom right corner of the map is area purple, and you can see a little bit of red. That's actually commercial and industrial zoning that is southeast of the property. We zoom in closer. This map gives you an idea of who is considered adjoining property owners on this request. Everybody with a letter on the screen would have received a notification by both the applicant as well as the city. This is a map showing the area's topography as well as the location of city-maintained public water and sewer. You can see that infrastructure is in Zoo Parkway, currently does not extend down Crestview Church Road. I'll note that this property is not within the city limits at this time. It is within our extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction. So if there were to be a development proposed on this property and connected to city utilities, there would be a requirement for the property to come into the city limits. This is a map giving you an idea of the development pattern for the area. You can see that Rock Cliff Terrace up to the top right. That's an R15 zoned subdivision. You can see the rural nature of the majority of the rest of the property here. There is a pond on the property, and it does feed a stream in this area. And you can see the drainage features of the surrounding property as well. We have several photos related to this application. This is a view from the intersection of Zoo Parkway and Crestview. You can see the subject property straight ahead there and labeled. This is a subject property as seen from Zoo Parkway. This is a view looking north on Zoo Parkway, subject properties to the left. This is a view looking south on Zoo Parkway at the intersection, again, of Crestview Church. We're now standing on Crestview Church looking towards Zoo Parkway, subject properties to the left. And this is looking the opposite direction, west along Crestview Church. So we turn to the analysis on this request. This site plan before you and the application is a different form than what the planning board reviewed at its September 6th meeting. The request before the council now seeks an approval to allow 44 attached single-family dwellings on 44 subdivided lots. Under the city's code, townhomes are reviewed as planned unit developments. The units shown, as demonstrated by the site plan, are approximately 1,000 square feet in size and include a one-car garage. Each lot contains space for 3 vehicles. You'll see there is no additional parking or overflow parking proposed within the development. But the number of spaces shown is compliant with what the city's requirements would be. Under the proposal, the lots would be served by privately maintained streets. So these are not publicly streets. These are not streets proposed to be publicly maintained. They would be maintained by an owners association along with other common elements within the community, including open space area, and you'll see there is recreational space provided around that pond. Solid waste disposal would happen via 3 dumpsters that are shown to be screened from public street view. There would be a mixture of landscaping preserved on the site or installed adjacent to Zoo Parkway, Crestview Church, and along the property's perimeter, and those details are provided on the plan. As we always note on conditional zoning applications, the process does allow an applicant to propose a specific district that establishes approval conditions as well as site development requirements for the project. That process does allow for a divergence from what the city's standard zoning ordinance requirements would be. Again, the property is outside of the city limits, but is proposed to connect to those services that would trigger annexation. Zoo Parkway is state maintained. It is considered a major thoroughfare under the city's transportation plan. Crestview Church also is state maintained. It's designated as a minor thoroughfare. This US 65 bypass is about 3/4 of a mile from the property. Travel distance to actually access that bypass is about 2 miles. The report notes that the immediate area primarily consists of low to medium density single-family residential uses. There are some institutional and multifamily uses that exist to the south. There is also that industrial zoning that I pointed out on the zoning map down Zoo Parkway. If you're familiar with the area, you know that Jellystone Park Campground is approximately 3/10 of a mile southwest on Crestview Church Road. And the Zoo City Sportsplex is about 3/10 of a mile on southeast on Zoo Parkway. As I said, 4 years ago, City Council approved a rezoning from R15 to conditional zoning R10 for a planned unit development with 36 attached single-family townhomes. At that time, proposed to be accessed by public streets. Units under that proposal ranged in size between 1,400 and 1,600 square feet and included 2 vehicle garages. The conventional subdivision requirement in the R10 district, and this is not a conventional subdivision, this allows a clustering of the lots, but a conventional development in the R10 district requires a minimum of 10,000 square feet per lot. For single-family dwellings, the district does allow duplexes on lots that are at least 15,000 square feet in size. Under the code, generally the maximum number of lots permitted for a planned unit development such as this is comparable to what we would expect to see under a traditional subdivision. The city zoning ordinance defines the R10 district, which is what is requested here this evening, as intended to provide regulations which produce a moderate intensity of residential uses, usually single-family or 2-family in character, and also served by central water supply and sewage disposal, plus the necessary governmental and other support facilities to serve urban intensity living. If you turn to this land development plan, which the city updated in 2015, it shows this property as appropriate for neighborhood residential development, which should include new neighborhoods of similar density to the surrounding neighborhoods to provide a greater sense of community. The proposed development density, if you do the calculation, is approximately 5 dwelling units per acre when you account for land area necessary for street right-of-way to serve the lots. In the R10 district, the maximum possible dwelling per acre is 5.8 units for a project consisting of duplex dwellings when no land area is necessary for street right-of-way. That number drops down to 4.3 units per acre when you're looking at a single-family residential project. This is somewhat hard to see, I recognize, from out here, but this is the site plan that is before you this evening. A few things I'll note. The big white area in the center of the plan is open space area to be preserved and also set aside for recreation. A good amount of that area in white is actually a pond that's on the property. The gray area that's shown to the right would be accessed from the private street and take you down to that pond where there would be some recreational amenities to serve the community.
So Trevor?
Yes, ma'am.
So it looks like the land would be cleared. One question I have is, are they gonna maintain any of the tree canopy around that pond and kind of in that area?
That is not, that is a good question, I think, for the applicant. Based on what this plan proposes, there is, where preservation is mentioned, it's mentioned along the perimeter where it can be preserved to meet buffering requirements. There is no reference to one way or another in terms of preservation. I'm sure the applicant or their team could address that question.
Okay, thank you.
This plan is very similar, actually, in layout to the 2018 plan that council saw and approved. It has a single entry off of Crescent Church Road, which then takes a pretty immediate northeastern alignment to provide access to roughly 14 units in that pod of the development, and then also goes straight to the northwest to provide access to the rest of the proposed lots. This, if you pulled the 2018 plan, it would look similar, at least in layout, to that project.
And this one has no units or no access to Zoo Parkway.
That's correct. That's correct.
I saw one plan that did have some down here in the corner, but that's not mine.
That's correct, and to your point, the plan that the planning board reviewed did actually have some lots that would have been accessed directly from Zoo Parkway. That plan was revised to do away with those proposed lots.
And that plan included what, 58?
Yes, sir. There was 58 units proposed on the application that went to planning board. We have included, and online is published, the staff report for that case that went back in September. So it does detail, and you can get an idea of the differences between that proposal and what you're seeing here today. But it has dropped off 14 proposed units. This is giving you an idea. This is an important plan just to give you an idea of what these units will look like. You can see the street-facing facade. There is a label to siding material or exterior material being brick masonry or shake. Siding, I believe. The other sides of the structure are indicated to be vinyl. As you can see, each unit does have an attached single car garage, and then there are room for 2 additional parking spaces in front of the units, of each unit. When we consider the land development plan's recommendations in terms of maps, again, that plan does recommend this for neighborhood residential development, so medium density residential land use is what that plan envisioned. At the time that this plan was done, and still in 2015, it's considered a secondary growth area. And what that means is that's an area just beyond the city limits that the city had identified as prime growth areas to move into as we needed land for development. And so this is within what we would consider to be an appropriate area for development, it being 20 years later than the original 2020 land development plan when it was adopted in 2000. There are also goals and policies contained within that plan that give us an idea in terms of what we hope to accomplish as a community in terms of development. When you look at the goals and policies, either supporting or not supporting this application, we find that there are a combination, and these do not actually even have to be considered equally. But there are a mixture of goals that we feel like are supportive towards the request. There are some that that may be not as supportive, at least in the staff's analysis. On this application, if the council were to put this project into the conditional zoning district, we do have a list of conditions that we believe would be important, both for land development plan consistency as well as for compliance with the city's code of ordinances for development. I'll real briefly go through these. These are contained in the report, but should this project be approved, we would ask that conditions be applied that established the number of units at 44 dwelling units on 44 lots. So again, there would be subdivided lots that these units would sit on. There would be a requirement to create those lots for these units. B covers future compliance with such conditions if the ownership were to change hands. We asked for a condition that would allow the enclosure of what are shown as concrete pads or other minor additions to the rear of dwellings, should an owner want to do that in the future, to allow that to be permissible without having to come back to the city council for a new public hearing. Condition D, that maintenance of all recreational areas, any utilities that would not be publicly maintained, including roads, drainage facilities that are not labeled to be publicly maintained, shall be the responsibility of the property owner and any successors. E, any water meter located outside the public right-of-way shall be located within the city of Asheboro easement. Again, the project proposes is the city-maintained water that would be installed by the applicant for the project, but not to maintain the sewer on the site. The installation of traffic and street signs within the development shall be the responsibility of the developer. Again, with these being private streets, the city would have no role in terms of installation or maintenance of street signs. Letter G, if solid waste disposal facilities are shown as deemed to be inadequate, the owner shall be responsible for ensuring that additional facilities or measures are installed. H, landscaping, including street trees, front yard landscaping, perimeter buffering shall be installed per the plan. Prior to the city issuing a compliance permit for this project, if it were to be approved by the council, we would be looking for documentation from the developer pertaining to NCDOT or the Department of Transportation approval for the proposed access to Crestview Church. I will say we have communicated this plan and application to the DOT. They have indicated there will be a driveway permit required to verify the location, but that they do not anticipate roadway improvements to be required to Crestview Church. Second, documentation necessary for the city would be from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, showing that the erosion control measures have been approved by that agency. J, prior to the issuance of zoning compliance permits, the plans concerning water, including the provision for fire hydrants and sanitary sewage, comply with city policies, shall be submitted. So there will have to be engineering documentation provided at that stage of this process should the district be approved to demonstrate compliance with those requirements. K, prior to the issuance of a permit, the applicant shall submit a site plan reflecting any revisions necessary to comply. So if there are changes that come out of the public hearing process, obviously we would ask for those changes to be reflected on an updated plan. Two more here. Condition L, all dwellings shall be located on a subdivided lot recorded in the public registry. And condition M states that prior to us issuing a permit, the owner shall properly execute and deliver to the city a memorandum of land use restriction for the purpose of placing notice the conditions attached into the chain of title for the zoning law. So these conditions, if the project is approved tonight, would run with the land, and anybody that owns the property would have to abide by the conditions that council set as a part of this process. As we turn to the staff analysis on this application, we note that since the original adoption of that plan, of that land development plan in 2000, there has been significant change in this area. Construction and opening of the US 64 bypass and the zoo connector, the building of the Zoo City Sportsplex, the development of the Jellystone Park campground, and continued growth of Crossroads retirement community, as well as other investments in the area, really has changed the landscape of this portion of the city's zoning jurisdiction. The plan's neighborhood residential designation does encourage new development to be comparable in density to surrounding neighborhoods. This request proposes a project density that is higher than the immediate surrounding area, but it is comparable to the Parkway South Townhome, which is further down Zoo Parkway, and to a lesser extent, the density that we're seeing in Crossroad, in the Crossroad retirement community. It's our opinion that the reduction in the proposed project density from that initial application is very important in order for the district to resemble the development outcomes that the city's land development plan envisioned when it was adopted. Furthermore, the housing that's proposed here, these townhome-style homes with less maintenance for property owners, is an important offering to have in the community. The project also does include sidewalks as well as open space preservation and advances other plan objectives. So considering those factors, the staff recommendation on this application is to approve it, finding it to be reasonable and consistent with the land development plan. I will note the planning board, when it reviewed this application in September, they were looking at 58 lots, a different development layout. At that time, staff recommended denial of this application. The planning board likewise provided a recommendation to deny that application. But again, subsequent to that, the plan has been revised.
The dwelling units were different too, is that correct?
Yes, sir. The style of the units is different on this plan before you. That original plan did not include garages on the project, and I think the square footage was about 200 square feet less per unit than what is now presented this evening. As you know, for rezoning action, you have both a consistency statement as well as the rezoning request to consider, so we would ask you to think about those necessary actions during any motion that comes. I'm going to stop here at this point because that's the conclusion of the zoning report for this application. Following public comments, I would like an opportunity to just talk about the subdivision process and our comments related to the subdivision ordinance. But I think the primary interest here for folks is to talk about the zoning district. So I'm going to stop right there and turn it over to Mr. Wilkley.
Trevor, one quick second. If you could go back to the goals and policies slide.
Yep.
Wait, forward. Yep.
Keep going, yeah. Did I pass it?
Yeah, you passed it.
Okay, sorry.
Passed it.
All right, sorry.
Way back.
There we go.
All right,
There it is.
all right.
I noticed in this slide, it's different than the handout.
Yeah, I was noticing that too. Yeah, yes, sir.
Checklist item 1 goes up.
Yeah, some of these have I think this is a carryover from the planning board slide. I don't think this slide got updated. What's in your packet, which does outline 5 goals or policies that staff feels are consistent with this proposal versus what this slide says, which seems to indicate a 4-to-4 relationship. The staff report has been updated, and it is 3 goals and policies that we feel are negative towards the request, 5 now that are.
So the handout is.
The handout, yes, sir. Thank you for pointing that out. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Wilhoit.
Mayor, Council, for the record, I'm Robert Wilhoit Allen, 100 Sunset Avenue, Suite A, right located downtown. As noted by staff, this parcel is just approximately 10 acres. The rezoning request is to an amended R10 conditional zoning to allow a planned unit development on this tract, a PUD. The initial application for the plan board, as explained by Trevor, Mr. Nuttall, was for 58 units. That's been reduced to 44 townhomes. And as you see the site plan, it changed some. Let me first give you an overview of the site. If you'll look at your screen, there's as you see, it's located right down on Crestview Church Road at the corner of Zoo Parkway. Go ahead, Nick. The neighborhood surrounded it, as reflected by the staff report, addresses the changing nature of that area. This neighborhood is down below Crossroads as you're going toward the zoo. But as noted, and I'm going to touch upon that point, the bypass, the 64 bypass and the Zoo Connector Road has really altered the traffic on Zoo Parkway. And that is something that's instrumental here. do have a video. This is an overview of that area of Crestview, Church Road, and Zoo Parkway. As you can see, it is heavily wooded, but there is development, as you can see in the background. As you see I think a question that was earlier by Ms. Heath, H.R. Gallimore is going to address the tree buffering asset of this project. There's not going to be an access road on Zoo Parkway. Access will be off Crestview Church Road. And I think that pleased NCDOT and should please this council so that it will not have traffic coming directly on that corridor. As you can see, it's heavily wooded. There is a pond, pretty large pond, almost an acre, located on the property. And if I was on council, and I represent a bunch of them, stormwater always an issue. Having a pond that large can certainly help address that issue. It's already there. There's an overview again of the parcel, and again, it's approximately about 10 acres. DOT recently made contact with the city staff and indicated there's not going to be any necessary road improvements in their opinion based on the current traffic and based upon the nature of staying entrances off Zoo Parkway. And there's existing surrounding area. It gives a good overview of that community. In fact, when I worked and helped building the zoo in 1976, the first year it was built by J.H. Allen. And we used to travel down Old Cox Road there and go in that direction. There is a campground that's come about, and it reflects some of the changes in that area. It's just about concluded. There again is an overview, Crestview Church Road and Zoo Parkway. Thank you. The rezoning has taken a change after the, and I should mention that in just a second. It kind of had a change after the planning board. After feedback from council and feedback from citizens at the planning board, it changed. Feedback from staff increased the living space increased from approximately 825 square feet to 1,000 square feet. It includes now an attached one-car garage. There's a driveway to the one-car garage. 3 vehicles can get in there, the one inside the garage and 2 on the driveway. So each unit, there's a possibility of 6 cars, parked there, and that's more than most homes have. If you look at, they'd have to be parking in the front yard in most homes. The neighborhood will have privately maintained streets, private garbage disposal. There'll be at least 3 dumpsters, and they'll be screened. And the landscaping along Crestview Church Road and Zoo Parkway will be in accordance with the plan, and I can assure you with all the conditions that are set forth on a conditional use, the applicant will have to follow that. There are some similar related projects Mr. Luke has done. Council may recall back in North Asheboro near Kiwanis Park, he had built these townhomes up there. These do not have an attached garage, and they don't have the driveway. But that's similar kind of work and layout that he's considering for this tract. As you noticed on the revised plat, he basically curved the units around the back part of the property. And there's a large area with this pond up there that is vacant. Mr. Gallimore will note that. He'll comment on that when he speaks during this later part of this presentation. The home site is, these townhomes are outside the city limits. There is a proposal to connect to city and water and city sewer, and Mr. Lucas is well aware that he'll need to seek voluntary annexation to the city to get those services, and he'll do that by guidelines. The surrounding area included various things that we saw, and bottom line is this rezoning is not that much. In 2018, it was rezoned to an R10 conditional zoning, and like was noted before, 36 townhomes were approved. This is for now 44 townhomes, and the density is closer to about 5 per acre when you take into account right-of-ways, and yet I believe the way that's been arranged on the property with the large pond, that I think the property can accommodate this 44 requests of this board. Also, since being before the plan board, Mr. Lucas is adding a sidewalk to extend to the recreational area, which is curved right around part of that lake, and to the right-of-way of Crestview Church Road. This property has some qualities about it that are consistent with your land development plan. The neighborhood is residential. They're going to do a central small area plan and growth strategy map design at the moment. You know, it is secondary growth. The city infrastructure, that's crucial, can support the utilities, water, sewer, and the roads. And the subject area property is not located in a watershed area or a critical flood zone area. And that's very well set forth in your staff report. The 2000 Land Development Plan was prepared over 20 years ago. I know you've tweaked it some since that time, but there were some big changes in that area. And the big changes include that southern bypass. That zoo connector is taking all these school buses. How many people see a lot of school buses on Dixie Drive anymore? You don't see them on there anymore. They've learned to come up that southern route, and they go in from the south. That has really helped the traffic on Zoo Parkway. And I dare say the NCDOT recognizes that, because they do not see any necessity to make road improvements because there's no connection on Zoo Parkway in this plan. And that was crucial. Your staff had a direct impact on that, trust me. And so as we look at it, you look at your Zoo City Sportplex, you got your local campground, Crossroad Retirement. Things have changed out there. And the density of this proposed project is very comparable to a project you approved many years ago, which was Parkway South, those townhouses down there. So I would like now to ask H.R. Gallimore, with the next one. You'll see the attached garage design showing that you got a driveway, and you'll have additional parking there. The units are curved around, and the pond's there in the middle. Go with the next one, Trevor. And so, excuse me. And so I would like HR to come up and explain some of the traffic and some of the unique characteristics of this real estate.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm H.R. Gallimore with RE/MAX Central Realty. A little bit of a history lesson. This council did approve, I sold this property to the current owners. To address your concern, Ms. Heath, I'll start with the select cut or the lack of a select cut. It's owned by a timber company. It's owned by John Robbins and Tony McDowell. I think minus this project, they probably cut it all. There would be no select to it. The good news with Darren's plan, because of natural buffer, which is always less expensive and more congruent with the property, I'm sure he'll have some conversations with them about what will be cut, but I know that the trees, certainly some of those trees have to be cut. So bear in mind what they do for a living. So at that time, the plan was to do 36 units, and they planned to move forward with it, cut the timber and move forward. And then they kind of struggled with a builder, and then we all know what happened then. The pandemic hits, and the lumber business changed, and we talked about selling this to someone else for some time, but Darren hooked up with them, and you see what you see before you today. One thing, I'm going to try to stay in my lane, but I did want to give that little history lesson if I could. We've got a number of townhome projects in Asheboro, and I can tell you from our experience, some of the newest ones are Sherwood Oaks has been done, Parkway South is right down the road from this. One of the concerns always is with neighborhoods, what's it going to do to property values? We found it to be very harmonious. In some cases, I would argue that due to the clientele and some of the people that live in some of the nicer units, it may have improved some property values. Number of those around town. That would be our opinion. The traffic, I know it's coming up. It did last time, so it's the bigger part. It's the bear in the room. At that time, we didn't have a connector, and as we talked about it at that time, people oscillate into the zoo all day long at various times, but they all leave at the same time. And therein lies the problem on Zoo Parkway. You live that way, Walker, I think you know. So the good news now, when you're leaving the zoo, you're directed to the corridors that take you around Asheboro. I personally want to see more of them come into town. That's where they spend money. That's tax dollars, right, John? But there is less today probably than the last decade on Zoo Parkway. So my thoughts are this is 8 units more than this council looked at in 18. He's probably doing a better job. I don't know if you know the history on Darren. I think Bobby spent a moment sharing it with you. He and his family have been building their entire life. They've just done a number of 300-unit apartment complexes in some other towns. But this is home. And with all the things that are going on today, the chip site that's just been announced, we send them water to that, John? The mega site, the zoo's its own mega site, all the things that are going on. We've already have a critical housing shortage, critical. And I'm just happy to see someone willing to build something. Any questions? Would like to leave it open for Bobby and myself. If there's some issues we can do later, answer later, as some folks are going to speak behind us. I'd appreciate to leave some moments to answer that if we can.
We can come back to you.
Thank you very much.
And just briefly.
I didn't have a pencil. I didn't write my name down.
Here.
You sure you're okay?
Oh, every day. I didn't write mine down.
You guys might know this, but Bobby, David, and I, all three graduated together. And I'd just like everybody to stand up that thinks I look younger.
Guys are a lot older than us.
Yeah.
Nobody standing up.
There's something wrong about all of that.
Yeah, it was a rough class, wasn't it? Just in conclusion, the rezoning that's being asked, the amended rezoning to 44 units, has been recommended by staff for approval. They determined that it's reasonable and it's consistent with the Asheboro Land Development Plan, and that's very important in the North Carolina law. The proposed changes, I hope, addresses staff concerns, and I hope they address a lot of the residents' concerns that came to the planning board meeting. I've commented on the zoo connector being very instrumental, and that it will certainly, hopefully alleviate traffic issues that were brought up in the planning board. We talked about the area that the change, and we talked about the critical housing need for the mega site and other things going on in Randolph County. We would respectfully ask you to approve this rezoning as amended and as changed after strong input at the planning hearing. We thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Wilhort?
Yes, Mayor.
We have one, Bob.
Yep.
You amenable to the suggested conditions?
Oh, yeah, they're about,
as proposed by
I guess,
staff?
Clark, it's kind of like interrogatories. There's some ayes, and there's about 13, 14 of them
Yeah.
in there. And Mr. Lucas is certainly agreeable. He's worked very closely with the staff in addressing that to try to alleviate any concerns of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. We realize there are quite a few neighbors here tonight that would like to speak, so who's going to go first?
My name is Nicky Fields. I worked with DOT for 39 years, and the question I have is, Zoo Parkway is still a busy road. And my question is, where are the traffic when it pulls out to go? It's gonna go on Zoo Parkway. It ain't going on Crestview Church Road, because there ain't nothing on Crestview Church Road that they can go to. They going into town at Asheboro. Am I right? I mean,
Most likely.
most likely.
Not to go on Federal Street, but if they're going to 64, they certainly are.
And I don't think that the bypass, from what I understand, and I've seen some numbers, bypass is working some, but not like they want it to, the new bypass. Because a lot of traffic is still on 64.
Old habits die hard.
They are. They are, and people are getting confused when they pull up there to get on it. They don't know which way to go. We had calls, but people don't know how to get on the bypass. They want a sign that says bypass this way. And so we've had calls about can't get on the bypass, or can't, how do you get on the bypass? How do you get on the bypass? Well, there's two ways to get on it. You get on it this way, or you go around and you stay on the old road. So I guess my question is also that Zoo Parkway is still a busy road. And we live on Rockcliffe Terrace, which is the road right below Crestview Church Road. And yes, they did have a driveway that was on Zoo Parkway. And that was not gonna work, period. But I guess the problem I got with it is when people, like I say, when people leave, they're not gonna go down Crestview, they're gonna go down Zoo Parkway. And that's the concern I have is still the traffic. Because it is tough for us to even pull out of our driveway and get out because of that hill right there. So.
Mr. Fields, if you don't mind, would you print your name on that?
I sure will.
Is there a pen?
There he is.
Thank you, sir. Next.
How are y'all tonight?
Good.
I'm Kenny Bradford. I too am a resident of Rockcliffe Terrace. And I want to thank one of my neighbors because none of the rest of us would have known anything about it if one neighbor did not get a notice. I don't know if that's standard practice or how that works, but the first notice a month ago, one neighbor. This time, I didn't get a notice. I'm only the third house up the street. Not sure how that works because a lot of neighbors, a lot of other neighbors would probably be interested in what we're doing. So with that being said, I'm opposed to this. I've lived in Asheboro for 18 years now. They have one house. Come from Tennessee. We're working in Lexington. Looking for something. I don't like cities. I don't like big. I don't like crowds. I love my neighborhood. I love it. We're not stacked on top of each other. We're not looking at each other out our back doors. Not worrying about a whole lot of hollering and screaming. We're distanced properly. So for 18 years, I guess we all knew that one day that piece of property will be developed. You gotta grow, you're a city. Y'all's job is to grow the city. But also keep in mind those of us who probably like a lot of other homeowners, most homeowners, that do not live on Rockcliffe. What would you do if all of a sudden what you've dreamed for, what you focused on, where you wanted to reside forever, they're gonna dump, excuse me, maybe dump's not the right word, all of these units right on top of you, whether it's a duplex, whether it's a trailer park. That's not why I moved out to Rockcliffe. bought the house on Rockcliffe, because I'm still in the city, gonna pay my taxes, gonna get the benefits from it. But I'm not crowded. Now it seems like we're gonna throw a lot of extra people, and I think it went from 58 to 44, and at one time it was 36, something like that, a long time ago. So let's just roll the dice, throw them out there, and see what we come up with. I'm not fond of having that many residents stacked on top of us. I appreciate your time.
Sure, Mr. Barry, thank you.
Hello, I'm Charles Lewis, and our family owns the land right across from Crestview Church. You saw on the film the big field right across. That's
Where Crestview Church dead ends right straight ahead of you.
yeah.
Got it.
And so my son and I own. Well, he owns the large field. He inherited that from his mother, and then I own the next two houses. There's a brown frame house there, and then two-story brick farmhouse. Some of you might be familiar with it. Was where Clifford Brown lived. That's where we are. And so I'm a little concerned about several things that have already been addressed. The intersection of Crestview and Zoo Parkway is going to have substantially more traffic there. And so if I understood correctly, they're not going to change that intersection. Is that correct? Did I hear that?
There's no change required for this subdivision.
Okay.
As the area grows, and you guys be aware, there's development companies looking at land down that way. There are lots of land, and Asheboro's gonna grow that way simply because we can't grow to Randleman and we can't grow to Franklinville.
Yeah.
South is the way we're gonna grow. But DOT's responsibility is to keep that intersection safe for existing traffic. There is nothing required for this subdivision that will institute any physical changes to the intersection at this time. Doesn't mean that they won't at some point have to redesign that intersection.
Because I have trouble getting out on Zoo Parkway sometimes.
I go that way myself quite often.
Yeah. Now, I've got enough land, I could actually circle around behind the barn and go out on Crestview that way, but,
I'm through there 6 times every day.
so, you know, I thought about, are they gonna put in one of the ever-popular roundabouts? Or a traffic light?
He's brick, historic house.
Or some modification to address the increased traffic. And we got the sportsplex opening up, so that's gonna add some more to the mix. And the traffic from the Yogi Bear, that hasn't been as bad as I thought it might be the last time I addressed the council several years ago, you know, when they were trying to hibernate there.
They've been a pretty good neighbor.
They have.
Now, your brick house is historic property, right? I mean, something during the bypass.
Jane never did pursue that.
You didn't put it on the register, but there is historic value in that home. When they were looking at the southern loop, they excluded your property because of some historic significance of the.
Right, not only the home, but there are two tobacco barns on the property. One of which we still own, but one's the developer there's 60 acres back there has been clear cut.
Oh, that other tobacco barn sitting out there.
Yeah.
I can see that now. Yeah.
I did get to them while they were cutting and saved some nice persimmon trees, which was good, and he lets me go there and get those. But, so that was one concern, was the intersection. And wondering is the city gonna move out? are we gonna be annexed into the city? I'm not sure where the city line is. Is it still down at the base of the creek?
When you get down through there, Rock Cliff is because they have water and sewer. It's kind of hit and miss as you go up that hill. It is not a straight line across there.
Yeah.
It generally stopped at the creek, but Rock Cliff requested, so, and the Zoo City Sportsplex is, Parkway South is, the nursing home, Crossroads is.
Caroline
So,
is.
and Caroline, so,
Oh.
our policy requires if you want water from the city, you get sewer and annexation. So, if you don't ever need water, you're probably safe for a while.
Well, I actually have the, city water and sewer.
Well, I wouldn't say that out loud then. I'm kidding.
I didn't slip out there at night, knock a hole
They
in
were
it.
there when the line was installed and
Yeah.
those taps were offered when the new
Yeah,
construction was.
I
going
was
back to
trying to be
1972.
funny there. But no, we have about 1,700 customers outside the city limits of water, primarily water, and we don't do that anymore.
Oh.
That was a self-defeating policy, and our policy was changed a few years ago to
Yeah.
require annexation if you get water. So the neighborhood across from you, there will be, as you heard Mr. Woolward say, and most of you probably understand that we're looking to locate our third fire station down that way. Now, we haven't, I don't think
We don't have a site yet.
we don't have a site yet, but it will be down that way.
All right, I think that, let's see, I was trying to think, there were three things I was interested in. Oh, the big field there that we have, that's still residential, but probably could be,
Could it be a fire station?
well,
Don't answer that, I'm sorry.
I'd kind of like a Harris Teeter, to be honest with you.
Well,
Talk about traffic.
And I could, get an electric golf cart and get to it, and, that would,
Mr. Lucas, you just got your marching orders. He wants a Harris Teeter next to him.
They need more housing money to support that, so we need to work together.
but I thank you for listening to me, but.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Again, the concern is the increased traffic.
We understand.
Unless it's a grocery store.
Well, yeah.
Okay, thanks, sir. Next.
How you doing?
Good.
Where's the pen?
Everybody gets one when they leave.
What's say, neighbor? I know where you live.
We have good pens and they generally disappear.
We go through a box every month.
J.J. Johnson, I've been on Rockcliffe Terrace for 24 years. I moved there primarily because my father-in-law, now deceased, Ray Farlow, lived in the Laurelwood Hills development right up the road.
Vestal Creek. Cool.
Yep, first house in there. And it's a great neighborhood I'm in, but traffic is the issue, big issue. I'm just afraid, and as you well know, driving through there, that Crestview Church Road and Zoo Parkway is a very interesting intersection. Been a lot of bad wrecks through there. And I just think the distraction that this is, we're looking at is just gonna be a negative. So I'm opposed to it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Next.
I'm Dan Milano. I also live on Rockcliffe Terrace. I kind of feel like my neighbors, some of them do, about that. I think there's way too many houses on that little bit of land right there, right beside us. One reason I moved out to Rockcliffe Terrace was because of the lot sizes, and it's peaceful and it's quiet at night. And I think if this gets built as proposed, all that's gonna change along with the traffic, which is a very big concern. When the 36 were originally proposed, they were 1,400 to 1,600 square feet as far as I know, and they had 2-car garages. Then they modified it, about a month or two ago to try to get 58 in there at 825 square feet with no garage. It was insane in my opinion to try to put that many on that little lot. I'm still kind of concerned that they've shrunk them down, even though they've revised it to 1,000 square foot on average with a 1-car garage, which is an improvement, don't get me wrong, from the 58 that they originally proposed. In comparison to Parkway South that they just said a while ago, Parkway South, it might be kind of the same amount of residents in that area that's proposed here, but Parkway South are a lot bigger. They're approximately 1,250 to right under 1,600 square feet, most of those in Parkway South. So in my opinion, they're kind of too small and there's way too many of them on that lot. And also a concern was keeping a tree buffer on Zoo Parkway. They're trying to kind of separate one neighborhood from another because you've got two way different type of neighborhoods trying to commingle now or coexist. And also my neighbor that lives across the street from me could not be here tonight, but he typed a letter and he asked me to try to give it to y'all.
Yeah, we'll take that and make it part of the record if you'll give it to the clerk. Would you like to read, for me to read it? Read it out loud into the record?
You want me to read it or you?
I'll read it for you.
Yeah, that's fine, if you don't mind.
Let me clarify something here that, just the way you said what you said, and you may know, but I want to clarify for everybody's benefit. The original request a few years back that approved 36 was never built by the original owner because the numbers didn't work.
Okay.
Cost of building and so on and so forth got out of sight, and just basically, he didn't make, with 36 units at the size they were and the development cost, that's why it has been put up for resale, and this developer is looking to buy the property from the first guy that got approved for 36. Well, his first attempt was 58, and planning board said, absolutely not. No garages, 58 units, and so by working with our planning and zoning department, he got down to a more manageable number of 44. Not perfect with the 36, but that is how we got where we are. It's not a process of just changing and changing and changing. It's a process of somebody else looking at doing the development and trying to make it work with current building cost and development cost. So this is a third owner in the last 10 years, something like that. So I just want to make sure. All right, so your neighbor, Mr. Jonathan Bullington of 810 Rockcliffe Terrace, you don't have to stand there.
Okay.
Has submitted a letter to the council, and I'm going to read it into the record. Dear members of the council, my name is Jonathan Bullington, and I reside at 810 Rockcliffe Terrace. Due to previous scheduled plans, I regretfully am unable to make tonight's hearing. Although I am absent, there are other members in the Laurelwood Hills South community, residents who live on Rockcliffe Terrace, who will be present tonight and will share the same concerns that I have for this rezoning proposal from Mr. Lucas. My property is located adjacent to the proposed rezoning location, and I would like to share some concerns if this proposition is to be carried out. As my neighbors and fellow Laurelwood Hills South community know, the increase in traffic activity has remained heavy regardless of the new bypass/zoo connector. Although I understand the efforts were made to alleviate this when plans were originally drawn, each day the number of cars that travel on US 159 continues to be a concern. With the existing Jellystone campground, trucks and other motors make their way up and down that stretch of road from Thursday night until late Sunday evening. Additionally, with the opening of the new sports complex, traffic will only continue to, Additionally, with the opening of a new sports complex, traffic will only continue to grow in volume. These venues are already established, therefore I am not condoning them and solely want to focus on the concerns of the proposed rezoning, but feel it is important to acknowledge the increase in activity. Additionally, the number of units per square foot for the 9.92 acre lot still, even with the modification down to 44 units seems excessive. With the volume of youth and other citizens that use 159 and Crestview Church Road for walking to and from schools, biking and running, this creates an immense safety concern. On a different note, I would also like to point out that the modification for this project and the specification, now 44 units, were made available to me on October 4th, just 2 days before tonight's hearing. In conclusion, the addition of this complex brings forth many concerns. I would like for the council to strongly consider voting against the proposal from Mr. Lucas, as I see no positive outcomes if this moves forward. I appreciate your time in reading this letter and thank you for your dedication to our great city. Sincerely, Jonathan Bullington. All right. Now, Holly, put that in the record, please. One of the speakers raised Mr. Nuttall, I want you to do something for us here. Explain the notification process and why the people up the street there on Rock Cliff were not notified, what our requirement is.
The city's code follows the state law as it pertains to notice to adjoining property owners when there's a land use case such as this. Those landowners, we produce a map for every case that identifies who those property owners are. That is the screen, the map up on the screen. If they have a letter under the state law, they are considered to be adjoining landowners, and thus we notify them. But it's because we expressly follow the state law.
Adjoining landowners, so people up the hill and around the corner on Rock Cliff.
Just the ones at the end.
Well, unfortunately, it's adjoining property owners that get the notification, and the developer is required to send that notification out.
Well, I appreciate the information on that, but without knowing that, it sure seemed suspicious. Don't understand it. There's 35 of our homes up down that road.
Well, there's also 200 other homes around there that you'd end up notifying everybody within a mile or a mile and a half or a half a mile. I
understand that too.
So, I'm not making excuses, I'm just trying to address your concern about why you weren't notified. All right, next, is there anyone else who would like to address this proposal? Mr. Wright?
Good evening. My main concern is basically what these other gentlemen has told you, is the traffic. Zoo Parkway is still a heavy traffic road. I can remember more than one time that traffic was backed up from 64 past Rockcliffe Terrace, past Crestview Church Road. I couldn't even get out of my street I live on, more than one time.
Past Crossroads.
Sir?
Past Crossroads a couple
Well,
times.
I don't know, I went past Crestview, I couldn't see over the hill, but there was traffic backed up. And that was just when the zoo was there. I mean, on a holiday like Christmas. But now you're gonna have this sports complex down there that's gonna have tournaments all year long. If all people from all over North Carolina and out of North Carolina. And my main concern is the safety of the people on Rockcliffe Terrace, the safety of the people traveling on Crestview Church Road. I am opposed to building these apartments and adding more traffic on that road. It's just like Mr. Field said, those people are not gonna travel Crestview Church Road. They're gonna take Rockcliffe Terrace to Asheboro. And I would ask that you would take into consideration and oppose this. If I can get my name written down here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Related to notice, Mayor, it's important to note for the record, and I neglected to do this earlier, but there is also legal advertisement of land use cases that is published in the newspaper, as well as signs posted on the property informing the public of it. So there's a three-pronged approach when it comes to notice for these matters, and the city has followed that process.
Anybody else? Okay. Council, you have any questions for the applicant?
I have a question.
Yes, sir, Bill.
I'm a little confused about what Kelly brought up about the landscaping. Now, we can see obviously from the drone shots, they have some beautiful trees there. Are those trees gonna be like cut all down and new little trees planted? Or I mean, what's the deal on that?
I'm gonna speak for Darren, if I might.
Okay.
I want to reiterate that the property is currently owned by a lumber company. And for those of you in the room know that they can go in and clear cut the whole thing. They don't have to replant it. They don't have to do anything. They can cut it, let it sit there. Sometimes they replant, sometimes they don't. This is about 5 years more growth from when they purchased it. I think you saw from the aerials, it's prime for cutting now, and timber's bringing some all-time highs. And they are going to cut it, but I think with this project, you'll find that it'll be more select cut. There'll be more things left for buffers. That's something that Darren and the lumber company will have to work out. I don't think, Darren, I'm speaking for you, I don't think you want them to go there and clear cut it.
I want to cut as less as possible. is what I
Yeah.
wanna do, but
So,
I
but
got
they do own it.
something to grade and do all that.
They do own it, and they do have the ability and the right to cut it. So that's something he'll have to negotiate. We had a conversation earlier. Natural buffers are always better buffers. Leaving trees are always better. And Asheboro's made a living on planting trees, have we, David?
And there will be additional requirements.
Absolutely.
In addition to what trees are left.
That's right. So anything that can be left as natural buffer is always a positive.
Well, and part of why I asked that question was the visual piece that one gentleman brought up. So
Yeah.
that's part of why I asked the
Right.
question.
I know we did, we sold some property over in my neighborhood, not far from where you live, Kelly, up that fronts the bypass. David Henderson's son bought it, and the neighbors were real concerned and thought he couldn't cut it. No, they did cut it some, but he gave the neighbors opportunities to buy some land right behind them. He's done a nice job because he's gonna live there. These guys aren't gonna live here. So I think frankly, for the neighbors from an aesthetic standpoint and for the city in this corridor, we got a major investment down there. This will be much better than what you would see happen if a timber company gave us any clear cuts.
Kelly,
Speaking of that.
question for Darren, related to this, and I'm sorry. I want to just ask Darren directly. Have you, in your negotiation to purchase this property, had any discussion with them about not cutting all those trees?
Yeah, so we went off that old plan, and the old plan had showed leaving X amount of trees, and so my contract said they'd be able to cut the trees, but whatever the city council said that couldn't cut, they couldn't cut. Now, if they get cut, it'll be against that contract that I've got with them, so it's not supposed to happen. And I live here, so I'll be up and back and forth every day. And so I wanna cut as less as possible, because it's gonna cost me money to put back trees. I'd rather have 100-foot tree standing there than have to plant back a little one. Try to anyway.
All right. Anything else?
I think you got a question for me?
No,
Walter?
I do not have a question.
But no, that is an interesting point I hadn't thought about. If we don't approve a development there, then they could come in and just clear cut that whole 9 acres, right?
It's not a threat.
I'm not saying
I'm
don't
just-
do it, but that
not a
could
threat,
happen.
But that's the business they're in. That's the business
Well,
they're in.
all back, back of the Lowe's and all back in there, somebody just cut everything.
Regrettably, and every time I see that as we ride through the county, it really gives me a lot of pause. It looks awful. It really does. So, not talking about traffic, but from an aesthetic standpoint, this will be a better opportunity for the city, for the community, for the neighbors, than if they come in and clear cut it.
Sure, that's what.
That's my point.
What the plans as submitted says, no, it's not a question, it's a statement. If we'll read what's been given to us. You've got a 35-foot setback coming all around here on the road frontage, and then 25-foot setbacks going along the property lines, and it says C note 12, and it says there's existing hardwood trees. In other words, there's a buffer requirement or the existing hardwood trees. I've never met a developer that wanted to plant anything new when there's already something there.
Nor have I, nor have I. It's a lot easier to leave what's there.
You know, what I'm hearing is from Mr. Lucas, and now this is a question. If we state as one of the conditions that that the existing vegetation has to be left in that area, then it shall be.
No trees cut in the 35-acre setback.
And the
I mean,
setbacks.
35-foot setback.
So some real estate information. The buyer doesn't have to close until the last day of closing. So Mr. Lucas can void this contract anytime he wants to with the seller. So if the seller doesn't want to adhere to the council and to Darren's request, Darren can pull the plug on this at any point. So my recommendation to Darren is to be very careful of what's here on buffer and make sure that everyone abides by that when they do the cut. That would be my recommendation. But he's not even in play unless this is approved tonight. He won't be in play. Back to your concern, sir.
I think what happens is we're gonna have to do grading. Okay. Let me say that, a few things about that.
But you won't be doing any grade no during that 35 feet.
Well,
There's nothing there to grade to.
so if you said,
Introduce yourself to the microphone, please.
I'm Darren Lucas, the developer.
Thank you.
So that 10-foot buffer, if you said you cannot touch those trees in that 10, that would be very easy. What happens is when you go in the driveway on Crestview, the grade drops down. So we're gonna have to get that grade down. So there'll be a little bit of a slope there. And so to get the slope, I've got to take some of those trees down. So if you said, do not touch the 10 foot, we could probably come over and then start the slope, that would work. But if you said the whole 35 foot, that would be hard. That would be tough. So I never like to commit to it because we may get out there and be, oh my gosh, this grade, we didn't know that in that meeting, and we gotta grade this to make it where the slopes are better for the drainage and all that. But if the trees, if I have to leave them, and I don't wanna get into, oh my gosh, now I need to put a wall there. I don't think that would happen.
If we were to do a similar, condition about your setbacks and your trees, and exclude the entrance area, so you can get proper pitch and
Yeah.
grade. Trevor?
I think I
That
can
work?
pretty much closely make it work. That sewer line on that lower side worries me a little bit
Yeah.
about that 10 foot of
Well,
trees.
that's
But-
consistent with the approved grading plan, because there's gonna have to be more drawings than this.
Yeah, so if y'all say, let's try to keep 80 or 90% of the 10-foot original trees, you know, maybe we, you know, give me a little bit of variance if I got some bad spots, maybe we could probably pull that off. And/or if I have to take those out, I could skip over and save them
I understand.
behind that.
You've gotta get through there.
Yeah, because I wanna leave them too, because they look good. So,
And there's not a tremendous, it's not an area where you need the dirt to make the project work. It's just that we're trying to maintain as much natural buffer
Yeah.
as possible, but I understand you gotta get your tilt.
yeah, it'll look, I mean, I want to, it looks better, and it'll be less I'll have to plant, because if I plant a tree that's this big versus a 50-foot oak, that's a lot.
I know that
lot
the
better.
natural economics will take care of this.
Yeah, exactly.
The council feel comfortable giving your planning staff flexibility in addressing that with a grading plan?
And that's exactly what condition 11 asked for. We'll go by condition 11, we should be fine.
Okay.
As written.
That's not our condition, that's the footnote on the plan.
But it's as submitted, when we get the subdivision plan, it'll be part of it if there's.
Anything else?
Thank you. All right, council. What are your wishes?
Mr. Mayor, based on the evidence and documentation presented by the staff in their most recent review, I find that the application to be consistent with the land development plan and would approve, make a motion to approve based on consistency statement, the rezoning request.
Have a motion by Mr. Moffett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Bell. Discussion. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, real quickly, I said I would defer the subdivision element, the technical portion of this review to now. Very quickly, there are, in your report, there are a series of comments related to technical compliance with the city subdivision ordinance. Real briefly, there is a recommendation, a condition in the zoning case pertain to the number of dumpsters, and if in the future a dumpster would be necessary, then that would be provided. That was based on a Public Works comment on the subdivision. Number two, that owner's documents be provided consistent with city code, and that a final subdivision plat be recorded prior to us issuing certificates of occupancy. Number four, again, related to DOT, we did route this plan not only to DOT, but to the school system, as we do with all subdivisions, and the Postal Service, and did not receive significant comments from those agencies. Hydrant locations will need to be shown at the next stage of this development review process, and engineering related to the utilities will need to be submitted. So with those comments, the staff recommendation is to, and the planning board's recommendation is to approve the subdivision sketch design. Thank you. We do need a separate motion pertaining to the subdivision.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the subdivision sketch design.
Have a motion to approve the subdivision sketch design. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I will add the comment of the nuances of a growing town. They are what they are.
It's fixing to get worse, people.
Or better, depending on how you view growth.
Well, traffic. There's a company looking at land out there on, Old Cox Road for 200 homes.
Yep.
And
And there's decent farms.
Yep, 10-4.
50% housing shortage in America right now. People cannot find a home to rent or buy.
Because there's a big pumping station right across the Richland Creek.
The Richland Creek.
All right.
All right, Mayor, the
Next item on the agenda is,
the hour is nice, so I'll move quickly through these next few items.
Mr. Ogburn and Ms. Reeves have a laundry list of items to update us on. Go ahead, sir.
All right, Mayor, I just want to follow up on, the lady came last month and mentioned about Fraser Park. Ms. McGrath, I just want to follow some of took the notes, and facility maintenance crew's been diligent working to upgrade the park, if you've been by there recently. Following photos of making good progress in improving the overall appearance, a new roof's been installed over the picnic shelter. Restroom facilities are being renovated with new plumbing fixtures and partitions, and being repainted. The roof to the restroom is in poor condition, and it will be replaced to match the picnic shelter.
And we have that ordered.
Yes, sir. And the parts to repair the broken slide should be here in 10 days. We're going to move the Coke machine behind the little stage in the park and get it off the bathroom wall there where it's used to be a scale to get on the top. Turn the hot water off in the bathrooms. And police have been diligently patrolling that area, but all the city parks, and we fixed the lock.
Let me add, while you go through these pictures.
That's
We have automatic locks on our bathrooms in all our parks, and they're scheduled to lock at 9 o'clock. The problem is some of the, different people that hang out in the park late at night, late evening,
That's the new
are
partitions
propping the
being
doors
installed.
open. They have unwired or disabled the automatic locks, They propped the doors open. We found them using drop cords off of the receptacles out back to charge their telephones behind the Coke machine and stuff like that. So our police are patrolling, making a check on all the parks after 9 o'clock to make sure the doors are locked and nobody's in the bathrooms.
Yeah, there's
And
that's
they did ask at the last council meeting to, have some research on changing the, curfew.
we're working on that.
All right.
Okay, you see the repairs going on in the bathroom. There's a shot of the roof that will be,
All metal.
to match that.
Yep.
The trees, that Ms. McGrath mentioned that were low over the sidewalk, they've been cut. And we just wanted to report that, we heard what she said, and we've been out there and fixed a lot. The mayor, and I could, have met with some other neighbors out there, and, we'll see if we can't keep making improvements. And we want to thank
We met
Ms.
with the school people regarding the tunnel and access at the appropriate times for the tunnel.
That's correct. We want to thank Ms. McGrath for coming and mentioning that to the council and to the staff. Our next item is, one we started working on is the entrance corridor, placemaking branding project we've been working on. We were requesting approval of the standard abbreviated form of agreement between the City of Asheboro owner and J. Davis Architects for the I-73 placemaking branding project. In November, just to remind the council received an overview of a placemaking and branding project to promote economic development within the city and continue to meet our strategic plan to align us with the zoo. Examples included, but not limited to, the construction of animal statues along the corridor to promote the zoo. J. Davis Architects, we were selected, and they did the initial study. The first gateway marker is suggested for the Pineview Street interchange, and it looks something like this. We've had initial discussions with the NCDOT and the U.S. Federal Highway representative. They asked us to get the plans up, so that's the next step there. There's the project, there's a rendering.
And their initial concern was that people would be pulling off the road to look at them.
Mm-hmm. There's an overhead shot. They look at everything anyway, but I'm not an engineer. And there is a rendering of what it would look like. So we're asking, I'm sorry, turn over to Ms. Reeves now for the budget amendment.
The estimated cost associated with this contract is $145,000. There are two budget amendments in your packet. The first one that would need to be approved is the ordinance to amend the general fund, appropriating fund balance to move to the economic development fund. I recommend adoption by reference.
May I have a motion to approve this amendment by reference?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Heath. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
So we'll keep.
The second amendment is an ordinance to amend the Economic and Tourism Development Fund. This amendment recognizes the transfer of $145,000 and sets up the expenditure line item in the Economic and Tourism Development Fund. I recommend adoption by reference.
Motion?
Mayor, I move we approve the ordinance to amend the Economic and Tourism Development Fund by reference.
I have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. John?
Thank you, Mayor. So we'll keep chipping away at that project. The other project I want to talk to you about, Mayor, is if you went to the tribute band shows downtown, saw 5,500 or 6,000 people, you may have noticed that we have finally had enough people down there that the stage looked backwards, and with the advent of the social district, it's maybe time to think about how we redesign Bicentennial Park. We have a proposal from Freeman Kennett Architects and High Point, PLLC. We'll just show you some overview. That is the overview of the Bicentennial Park. You see there in the center, our dance floor and the top of the Rotary Pavilion. This is a close-up of that. If you remember that night, there were folks everywhere. We did a better job the second show. First show, we were kind of overwhelmed. This is something I've seen in Memphis. This is like a Hollywood Bowl. This is the Overton Park shell. That would be something we could look out there doing. There it is lit up at night. It's now called Levitt Shell. And then this is what our friends in Kannapolis just recently did for their downtown. So it has that same overview. If you notice during the shows, if you went, our stage roof is low, and then it has low beams. So they had to backlight the bands. Well, that shone right on the audience, and the stage is not very tall, so you couldn't see, hard to see. We have a good problem, which was we had lots of people, and lots of people had a good time. So we're asking this would begin this study process is not to redesign. It's to see what can be done. And we'll have to work for downtown Asheboro. So we would request that you have this, approve this item, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Reeves.
You have, in your packet is one budget amendment relating to this item. The concept phase is estimated at $12,960. We're recommending appropriation of fund balance for this and setting up the expenditure in the Recreation Department, which would be appropriate for this type of expense. I recommend adoption by reference.
I have a motion to approve this request by reference.
Mayor, I move we approve this expense by reference.
Motion by Mr. Burks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Bell. Discussion.
Oh, are you talking to your, okay,
I'm sorry. No, I wasn't calling them for discussion.
Oh, okay. I just had a question about the orientation.
But I will hear your question.
Well, I mean, if you use that shell, from the backside, which would be what you'd see from downtown, wouldn't it just be a solid?
I think part of that idea is to put back up a minute.
Put it on the other side?
Put it on the other end.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And have it open toward the, yeah. If that was one of the ideas the staff had.
Well, and
that's why we're hiring the
we're
architect.
asking these people to come up with some ideas and proposals. Whatever we put down there has to match the nature of our downtown, and my first impression of that shell is it doesn't. But there are lots of other options out there, a lot of things that we could come up with that would be less, in my mind, less obtrusive, and more in keeping with the design and historic nature of our downtown and the old buildings. But
You may end up with the existing stage being where they run sound and light.
the big problem is,
That's one of the things.
our roof that we have now is not tall enough to do theater-style lighting from the front. And they had the backlight, and everybody sitting out front could not see the band for the most part. And in order to front light the band, the roof's gonna have to be raised, and it may be that that's our best option. So we're just hiring this architecture group to give us some what-ifs and see what we can do and how much it might cost to do something better.
While, like the mayor said, while protecting the character, and you notice the little sidewalk, and that's the handicapped, for handicapped people to park on that. We have to think about all those access items, as well as stay off our friends, the railroad.
We don't have an appropriate marking on our wheelchair pad. And so most of the time, the sound crew sets up on the wheelchair pad.
That was an issue the other night, too.
Yeah, so, all right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, one comment from someone who was really involved with the process when it was done. There was a fight because there was a desire to have the focal point of traction at the front end, right on Sunset Avenue. But that was way before the council dealt with the utilities that did things like that, so the focal point being downtown was not nearly as critical as it was at the beginning. So I think you've got a lot more options now than we had in the beginning when it was done.
And there's another factor in there. We own the upper end of Bicentennial, the parking lot part of Bicentennial Park. We lease Bicentennial Park and the big parking lot beside it from the railroad. So, there again.
How much money the railroad wanted for 1/10 of an inch on the corner of one of those buildings.
So we have to, we pay the
Anything they
railroad quite a bit. We lease the green on number 3 hole on the golf course from the railroad. It's all lumped into one payment, but it's amazing what we have to pay the railroad for. Go ahead, John.
Thanks. Do we get that approved, Madam?
That was approved. Was it not? Did I call for a vote, right?
You did. Okay, thank you. Mayor Reese, a month ago, 2 months ago, we approved an agreement for the Piedmont Tri-Regional Council for, help us with strategic management assistance for the water line extension. That's the campsite, which is Chatham Advanced Manufacturing, which is on the Randolph-Chatham line. That is what Mr. Gallimore just mentioned. For the folks in the audience or on television, that is the computer chip plant. Why do Asheboro do this project? We have a system built on high use of utilities by textiles. We have plenty of capacity. Our water plant's running about 4.5 or 5 MGD. We're rated for 12 MGD, million gallons per day. We probably can run 11 out of that site right now. We need to sell water. And just as importantly, wages, dollars, don't know jurisdiction. So the Chatham Advanced Manufacturing, the chip plant is going to pay about $30,000 more per year than the average Randolph County manufacturing wage. So if you think of two high school man and woman married and working out there, maybe make $150,000 a year. So that's significant. In the state budget that was recently adopted, there's a $55 million grant for the city of Asheboro to run the water to that process. We're still waiting on it. While it's in the budget and signed into law, Mr. Sugg will tell you, somebody in the State Office of Budget and Management's got to check every one of those line items to make sure it's not in conflict with something else, or that it's not supposed to be $1 and it's put in there $100,000, or there's a typo. That happens.
For the audience, there is a portion of that campsite that is actually in Randolph County. Chatham County, City of Siler City, and Chatham County did not have enough water and sewer capacity to serve that site. So the state came to us and said, we understand you have an excess of water. Will you serve that site? So in the process, we're going to serve Franklinville, and it remains to be seen exactly what Ram Sewer is going to do, but it will go down 64 through Ram Sewer. They can hook on, they can not hook on. This is all part of the plan.
Process.
What will come out, will shake out in the final plan, but there will be a water line with Asheboro water in it going from here to the campsite, and that is actually closer than the Liberty mega site to Asheboro.
Right.
And convenient.
So this is just an aerial photo of our existing water system. The end of the line think that'll work up there. But the end of the line, the end of the blue right there is the old Blue Mist site. So that's the rest of the proposed route. Right along with this, John Gray and the Wooten Company was doing a county water study anyway, and this was actually preordained. It was in the final plan that he's getting ready to finish and produce. Next Wednesday, what's that, the 13th? 12th. Mr. Burks, the mayor, and I will be representing Asheboro at our first regional meeting. That'll include folks from Chatham County, Siler City, Randolph EDC, Liberty, Ramseur, Franklinville, and Randolph County, and Siler City. So if in the ideal world, the eastern third of Randolph could form an authority, and we would sell in bulk to authority. They would then resell to the campsite, and everybody could make a little money, which is nice because everybody has a system built for textiles.
Which side of the road do you think that?
What was the
Currently on
question?
the south side.
On the south side.
It's currently on the south side now.
The other thing about doing this project is since the state's heavily invested in getting the computer chip here, they'll help DOT move it along.
Ramseur's water tower's on the south side too.
Yeah.
And that's
So this is a really important project for the long-term financial success of Asheboro. When I got here 22 years ago, we were at 7.5 MGD and talking about having a bond campaign for our water plant, and now we're 5 or 5.5.
Isn't it?
But we have more citizens.
We lost
We
two
don't
dye
have-
houses in 1 year.
We don't have any textiles.
Customers.
This is a nice makeup of that.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. About $1.5 million in revenue when the two dye houses closed.
There's a portion of this section that'll have to have a parallel line, because we don't have a big enough line going out of town in one place to get out there.
Yeah,
So-
that's part of it.
It's a more far-reaching answer to your question.
And prior to this agreement with the state request, we had agreed to sell Franklinville water because, they wanted more water, wanted better water, and wanted to pay less for it, and had come to us asking us if we would sell them water. So they've done the engineering for a vault and a meter right there along about Blue Mist, the old Blue Mist. So that will serve their 64 corridor, which is city limits of Franklinville, the trailer park, and everything back into town. And somewhat, as John shows on the blue here, somewhat up Laughlin Pond Road.
It goes to the post office just a little bit, the post office has got water service. That pond leaks, there was water in that ditch when we put in that pond.
Well, there was, yeah.
The road's hard to stay.
Yeah. So I'd like to ask Ms. Reeves now for the budget amendment. We do. This was $4,000 more, I think, to get all the players involved. I believe that was right. 5,000. She'll give you the exact details.
The contract with PTRC for strategic management assistance related to water line extension and wastewater services is $18,750. Since this relates to both water and sewer, this is an ordinance to amend the water and sewer fund, appropriating funds for this in the water treatment plant and the wastewater treatment plant departments. I recommend adoption by reference of this ordinance to amend the water and sewer fund.
Have a recommendation from staff. Do I have a motion to approve this by reference?
Move to approve by reference.
Have a motion by Mr. Burks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
All right, Mayor, back to you.
That's it. Okay, busy time of the year for us coming up. This Saturday at the courthouse, 9 to 4 is Randolph County Firefighters Day. They'll have fire trucks and demonstrations and competitions and various things going on at the courthouse from 9 to 4. Come out and support our firemen. The fly-in is Friday, Saturday. This says Friday, but it's Saturday. The flyer says Saturday. Saturday the 15th, the Asheboro Regional Airport, North Carolina Aviation Museum and Hall of Fame will have their fly-in from 9 to 4. And if it rains, the rain date will be October 22nd. It's a pretty cool event. There's usually some pretty interesting planes out there, and I gotta tell you, we're starting to see some incredible jets in and out of our airport every day, with all the interest, in the Piedmont, the Carolina Corps. They're finding out they can land at our airport and be wherever they want to be in Randolph County quicker than they can land in Greensboro and get to the terminal. So, we're having a lot of traffic. So fly in Saturday. Chamber of Commerce retreat, everybody's going but Bill. Bill, you're not going?
No.
Okay. And Clark's not going, okay. Chamber of Commerce retreat Thursday the 20th through Saturday the 22nd. We got a special council meeting scheduled on the 27th, starting at 4 o'clock right here.
We'll just, Mayor, when the clerk and the attorney run the ad, we'll probably just actually meet in the back parking lot. We're gonna take a tour with the redevelopment commission. We'll also have a special called meeting at that same time to see the new senior housing Church Street lofts out the back. We'll levy it up to the clerk and how they write it up, and Mr. Sugg over there. When we finish that, we'll either adjourn or we'll
Recess.
Recess and move
go
down
to the sportsplex
for
a joint
tour of the sportsplex.
and the YMCA will be board of directors, and the foundation board will be there with us too.
Trick or treat in the park is Saturday the 29th downtown. The candy this year will be actually passed out on North Street instead of Sunset and Bicentennial Park. North Street will be blocked off, and they'll go down one side and back up the other for the trick or treating.
And if the weather's bad, we'll go in the gym.
We'll go in the gym. That's our fallback, bad weather. Veterans Day Parade, and we approved tonight the closing of the streets for that on Friday the 11th.
Now, Mayor,
Friday the 11th.
Friday the 11th. Now, our council meeting is Thursday the 10th.
Okay.
Now, the court system, the county, the post office, Veterans Affairs Office, all those are closed, but the city of Asheboro does not close Veterans Day. So that's why we're having the meeting on Thursday night. Sorry, Jane, sorry, Clark, sorry Kelly.
There's quite a bit going on at the Sunset Theater coming up this month. The Sunset Signature Series is back after a COVID-related delay and starts with Robert Burke Warren and Casey Noel doing a
Cash on Cash.
Johnny Cash tribute show and history. And Robert Burke Warren is married to
Holly
George
Warren.
Editor, writer, editor. So be an interesting show. And then the Friday Bluegrass is the first installment, first annual. Each year, Tim Moon's students do a recital, bluegrass recital, and it's usually two months, 2 nights. So this is the first night of that, and that's Sunset Theater. Does that say free? They usually charge $5, but it says free. And the Randolph Youth Theater night at the Wax Museum is October 13, 15, and 16 at the Sunset Theater. And
Always
stay tuned
one of our-
for Rhino Leap events coming up.
And the youth theater is always one of our biggest shows.
Yep, and Rhino Leaf has, their radio show.
It's Monday night, isn't it?
It's Monday night.
It's Monday
It's
night.
Monday night. Is that the Four Saints?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I think that's all I have.
And that's all the staff has too, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Kelly?
Just want to thank the city staff for their preparations for Hurricane Ian, and I know Public Works is working hard to get out and get all the stuff that came down. So just thank them.
Clark?
Ditto on that. I'd like to wish Trevor an early happy birthday. You can't get away from it.
Well, I was hoping, Michael Leonard would be here today so he could give just a little better information about this story. We was talking about the airport. We've had two very interesting things go on in the last week. Apparently, we have one of the best western sunsets at the airport in the region, I'm sure y'all got all the communication. But Honda Jet brought their latest new model, and they're making their video for their introduction here, but the neat thing was that Honda Ridgeline with the camera mounted on it, but it was a.
They didn't use the Chevrolet to film that commercial?
Oddly, they did not, although it might could have gone a little faster, but it didn't take long for the plane to get out of range. They were dragging around with the jet. But anyway, that was neat. And then we've had probably one of the best unique requests last week. And John, you may, but the heavy aircraft wanting to come in from I believe it was Atlanta. We're talking about 95,000 pound full wheel rating. To give y'all an example, 60 is what we're rated for. And you can get a variance from the FAA to let it land, but it cannot get on taxiway. It'll rut up to pavement. We're not.
Right.
Gold.
Got to land and taxi on the runway.
Yeah. So I think their final answer was see if they could find a smaller, lighter plane for their 16 people. But we don't know who and all, but somebody evidently very well heeled was interested in stopping in.
And if we can back up just a minute, Mayor, for the audience. Oop, too far. If you think about, I don't know if think about where the campsite is, it's just a straight line to Asheboro Regional Airport.
This is a way bigger deal for us than the Toyota plant will be.
The campsite is, yeah.
Probably.
The people at the airport get excited when there's a jet out there they can walk under. And we're having more and more of those, when they can literally walk under it and not have to crawl under it. So, we're having more of those, and the video that Honda shot with their jet, it's pretty cool having them filming there.
Oh, it's coming, which leads into the other thing I just wanted to mention, I sat up here during the go-go 90s and our meetings routinely ran to midnight, 1 o'clock, from planning board. And we, I think we're on the crux of what we're gonna be experiencing more and more often. We had just a little dabble of it this evening. And I just wanted to throw out moral support of, our land development plan is gonna become more and more important each and every month. And, you're gonna be constant at odds with density versus sprawl versus I moved out here to be by myself and now all y'all are coming. And there is no resolve.
No.
But, we have our water and sewer corridors, we've designated, and it will take a certain amount of resiliency to continue this growth and improvement of our town. The opportunity to remain stagnant is now officially gone in this man's opinion.
We would back up that, and our strategic partners, Asheboro City Schools, Randolph County Schools, Uvalde Charter School, Randolph County, City of Randleman, Segrove-Eula District. This item we're working on, our friends right up, sister city right up 311, Archdale and Trinity. If you think of Archdale and Trinity as a huge head count, population count, and right there is a community college, and 11 miles down the road is Asheboro and Randleman, and a huge head count in Asheboro and a community college campus, And already down 311 is the PTRWA water line. That's where the future mega sites in Randolph are.
One day there'll be a Buc-ee's at that intersection. My other goal is to, even if it's just from the old 220 to the Zoo Connector, is to get at least that portion of 64 named the interstate. But we have to wait till after November to do that, to start that process, because it has to be originated federally.
Yeah.
You know, but I would like to see interstate numbers all the way to the zoo exit.
From 64 to where?
To at least the Zoo Connector. I'd like to have the whole thing done, but you got some shoulder construction and shoulder widths with it. That involves a lot more money if you did the whole thing, but I think we can get it to the connector.
As I was trying to communicate to the neighbors tonight, most of our the city of Asheboro's direct growth is going down Zoo Parkway to the south. That's why our third fire station is gonna be down that way. We don't have a lot of other options, certainly not east and north, but the
And Mayor, west is
regional water and sewer that the county's talking about, a regional water and sewer authority down in the Ramseur eastern part area of the county is gonna just make incredible growth from Liberty to Coleridge, all up down the eastern part of the county, because what limits them is no water and no sewer.
There's a water line all the way from Ramseur to that Coleridge School. Put in 1986.
Yep.
Partially
So, all right,
hand-tracked.
Mr. Burks.
Also on the 15th, after you leave the fly-in, you can go to the Kiwanis is sponsoring the Miss Randolph County Scholarship Pageant, and that'll be at Randall Middle School. And Brad, what time does it start? I don't know. I gotta be there at 4 o'clock. I think it starts at 6, but I gotta be there at 4 o'clock. Anyway, if you've never been to a Miss Randolph County Scholarship Pageant, let me encourage you to go. It's a great evening's worth of entertainment. I mean, there's some very talented young ladies that'll be out there, and you won't regret going. Burt Parks, yeah, I can do that. Actually, I think a former Miss North Carolina will be there MC. I just have to go out and say hello.
Max Bell passed away.
Oh, yes, and it will be the first time that, since the Kiwanis has had this pageant, that Max Bell won't be in attendance. He's
Good guy.
Be the first time in 50 years.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
more than that,
Yeah.
because I used to dad when the JCs, and we would go, that's when the JCs ran it. So,
Yeah.
All right, Jane.
don't forget the employee appreciation, I think coming up the 19th, I think we have.
That's correct.
presentations. I have to be reminded several times, so I'm reminding y'all. And as we're getting to these longer meetings, I just want to say how much I appreciate serving with all of y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill?
You brought up Zoo Connector. I've been meaning to do this. You know, there's no sign, of course, all the people have left who live off Zoo Parkway. Of course, I live off Zoo Parkway too, and I drive it all the time. But there's no sign to Zoo Connector and Zoo Parkway directing people to Dixie Drive if they want to eat or whatever. Is anybody thought about doing that, putting a nice sign there? Because when you get on that bypass, I mean, you're out of town fast. I mean, you know, and that just occurred to me several times, but I've never thought about
Up
it.
until recently, and I don't know if they fixed that or not, but you get to the stop sign on Zoo Parkway where it hits the connector, there's no sign that says left to the zoo.
We're scared to death somebody's gonna find it.
And I have told the zoo, I've mentioned it to the zoo staff 2 or 3 times. Did you hit that stop sign on Zoo Parkway at the connector? And there's nothing, and anybody that's not from here could just as easily turn right.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I usually do.
But, you know, if they get out to, like I said, the bypass, they're going fast, and there's the directions to Greensboro, there's directions to Charlotte, but we're at Asheboro, you know, and they're gonna be out of Asheboro before you know it when they get on the bypass. So I'm just thinking that we ought to have a sign about, real nice sign about dining and entertainment or something there on Zoo Parkway, you know, I mean, I hit up Zoo Parkway.
We ought to have one of our wayfinding signs down there
A
that
movement for the
says
people in
downtown
Central
Asheboro,
Park, Dixie Drive,
dining,
kind of.
whatever.
We have to go, we have to go work backward, 'cause that kind of went.
You need some blue signage indicators, but the highway department's gonna want to send them, back up to 220 and then to 64. They won't.
They don't want them on
They
Zoo
won't put 'em
Parkway.
back on Zoo
They
Parkway.
built that for a reason, and it's not to keep people on Zoo Parkway. Philip
Mayor-
Cheek, our friend Philip Cheek has been diagnosed with throat cancer.
Oh, no.
And he's a probation parole, he's current bailiff, head jailer, I guess, at
Is
the
that the-
county detention
on the
center.
Board of Education?
And Board of
City School?
Education. There is a hot dog benefit for him Saturday afternoon. I don't have my phone, I can't look it up, but if you go on Facebook and look up Gene Woodle, Gene has all the information to tell you when and where, and it's a fundraiser for his cancer expenses.
Mayor, following what Ms. Heath said, Asheboro Fire ran 60 calls Friday night during the hurricane.
And we had a dozen trees down on streets.
Something like that, yes, sir.
About a dozen trees down on streets, and our Public Works got them up, got the streets open. The only ones that were a delay is if there was a power line entangled in the tree, and we waited for Progress to, or Duke to de-energize that before we touched the tree. And Saturday morning, they were out getting up leaves and stuff, Saturday afternoon.
We say we're in charge of restoring internet.
Preach it.
We lost TV, had a 3-year-old, and everybody was hogging the Verizon data, and we could watch Grizzly and the Lemons. It was a disaster.
All right. St. Louis.
First world problem.
Oh, is it? I thought, yeah.